Chapter 134. After surviving in the savage land for more than 300 days, Wang Lu had gradually become more and more comfortable. He even planned to go further west after this black tide, where the black tide was more intense, to further refresh his lower limit. If there was anything that he was not satisfied with, it was that the living conditions were too bad. There was no food and clothing. In this west mountain where there were no living creatures, there were only stones and stones. Occasionally there were some strange flowers and trees, but considering that these things had been soaked in the black tide for many years, Wang Lu felt that there was really no need to use them to test his poison resistance. Therefore, in the past year he basically did not eat. There were some dry food and water in his mustard seed bag, but they were all regarded as a rare feast. When he was tricked by his master into coming to the savage land, he was unprepared. Otherwise he would have at least prepared dozens of chicken, duck, fish, and immortal wine. After more than 300 days of survival, Wang Lu felt that even if it was eyes look up at the starry sky, he could happily eat to his heart's content. He was really hungry to the point of no lower limit. As a result, when he was the most hungry and thirsty, a little dog rushed in front of him. This was obviously a blessing from the heavens. Although according to the rules there were 1 black, 2 yellow, 3 flowers and 4 white, and the dog was only ranked 3rd, but at this time who could care so much? Wang Lu put out the bowl and chopsticks and greeted it with a friendly manner, but the little dog was startled. Its round eyes looked at Wang Lu and the bowl in his hand for a long time. Especially when it saw Wang Lu's shining eyes, it suddenly became fearful and took a few steps back. However, the space inside the cave was not big, and after taking a few steps back, it was about to retreat out of the cave. Coincidentally, at this time the black tide was at its most raging. Although the black tide came and the whole day was deathly silent, few people who survived here did not know that the darkness before dawn was the strongest. The little dog was originally forced into a dead end by the strong dead spirits in the black tide. At this time, if it returned to the black tide, it would be like asking for the dog's life. Suddenly it was in a dilemma. Wang Lu held the bowl, his eyes shining. Seeing that the puppy was afraid and didn't know how to appreciate kindness and refused to jump into the bowl, after thinking for a moment, he fished out a meat bun from his mustard seed bag and directly threw it at it. The meat bun had been lying quietly in the mustard seed bag for more than a year. It was an authentic craft that Wang Lu took away from the Ru family in a long time ago. It was also one of the few real delicacies that Wang Lu had with him when he came to the savage land. He was not willing to eat it for a year, but at this time he took it out and hit the dog. The puppy's reaction was also slow. Seeing Wang Lu take out the meat bun and smelling the fragrance, it stood there motionless as if it had been hit by the immobilizing mantra. The bun hit the dog's face and fell to the ground. The little dog was stunned. Its pair of dog eyes looked at Wang Lu, but the latter was still waiting for it with the bowl. The little dog grinned as if sneering, and then swallowed the meat bun in a few mouthfuls. It did not care that the other party might have poisoned the bun, as if it was showing off its digestive power. The little dog was also very hungry. After eating the meat bun, it was not satisfied and let out a satisfied moan. However, when it opened its eyes, it saw another meat bun lying not far in front of it. The little dog did not think too much. It went forward and swallowed it. The boundless hunger in its stomach improved a little. It looked up and saw a 3rd meat bun lying in front of it. Along the way, the 5 meat buns in Wang Lu's mustard seed bag were all eaten by the little dog. However, this investment was not a loss because when the puppy, dizzy from eating, reacted, it was already lying in the pot on the bright jade fire. Wang Lu threw the last meat bun into the pot, and the brainless little thing jumped in and ate it. When it reacted, Wang Lu had mercilessly covered the pot with the lid. Woof 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 woof. The small pot suddenly shook violently. Obviously, the little thing was unwilling to turn into a pot of fragrant meat. However, this Spirit Sword Mountain's little pot was not an ordinary thing. If it didn't go in, it would be fine, but once it went in, it would not be easy to get out. Wang Lu firmly held the pot lid with one hand while stretching out his foot to reach the seasoning bottle. At the same time, he exhaled his true qi, stimulating the bright jade fire to fiercely burn. Woof woof woof. The dog's barking became more and more ferocious, and the small pot shook as if it was about to explode. Wang Lu's hand that was holding the pot lid suddenly felt a burst of needle-like pain. He did not expect this dog to be so powerful that even the small pot, which was comparable to a 5th-rank magical tool, could not withstand its torment. However, since it was about to become a fragrant meat, Wang Lu did not intend to give it any chance. He immediately poured out his magical power to resist the puppy's struggling power. The puppy, of course, was not an ordinary dog. When it fiercely struggled inside the small pot, it released a powerful force. Each time it attacked and bit, it carried a needle-like force, which disintegrated the structure of the small pot. However, Wang Lu had to timely pour out his magical power to block the opponent's attack in advance, so as not to hurt the small pot itself. Although he was the top student of the Spirit Sword Mountain, he was not omniscient and omnipotent. He had not dabbled in refining and forging, so he had no way to repair this 5th-rank magical tool. He could only try his best to protect it from damage. This was actually a novel experience. Previously, when Wang Lu went down the mountain for experiential learning, he had fought countless battles. He also survived in the savage land for a year, killing his way out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. However, every time he only used his sword and never used his magical power to directly contend with it. His biggest asset was his non-phase sword art and non-phase sword bone. His magical power cultivation was his weakness, so there was no need to use his weakness to avoid his strength. However, at this time, no matter how strong his non-phase sword art was, it was impossible for him to use his sword art to cook meat. Therefore, he had to use his magical power to contend with the dog. Releasing magical power was not difficult for most middle-level chi cultivating stage cultivators, but unfortunately Wang Lu's non-phase method was very incompetent in this regard. The golden magical power that was refined from the surrounding spiritual energy by the sword bone could play a miraculous effect when combined with the non-phase sword bone. However, after it was pushed out of the body, it would quickly disperse and escape like a routed army. It was possible to use his true chi to stimulate the firepower, but it was difficult to form an effective force. At this time he directly poured his magical power into the small pot. Strictly speaking, it could not be considered as releasing magical power, but it was still difficult to resist the attack of the puppy. Every time he covered the pot with his magical power, it would be easily dispersed by the opponent, and the back of the pot would be injured. This was because the magical power output was not condensed enough. However, if he wanted to condense magical power, it was impossible to rely on his current non-phase method. This turtle life-saving divine skill had added all the attribute points to the internal defense. Once the magical power left the body, it would be completely unrestrained. Unless, in the future, his primordial spirit was further strengthened, and his primordial spirit could leave the body and condense magical power outside the body. However, he didn't know when he would be able to do that. After this confrontation for a while, the puppy's struggle became more and more intense. When it first entered the cave, it was in a sorry state and exhausted. However, after eating the 5 steamed buns, it was as if its physical strength had been restored, and it now had the capital to toss and turn. However, during this confrontation, Wang Lu quickly grasped the technique of using magical power. That was, after the magical power was highly condensed inside the body, he would quickly send it out, relying on the inertia force to prevent it from collapsing in a short period of time. In this way, as long as he could predict the opponent's attack in time, he would be able to resist the attack. Of course, how to condense it, how to urge it, and how to predict the attack, all of these were complex knowledge. Wang Lu's perception was very high, and soon he was able to put up a good defense, making the puppy unable to struggle free. After a while, the bright jade fire gradually extinguished. Wang Lu stretched out his foot and moved another piece, making the fire even more fierce. The puppy in the pot suddenly became even more unbearable. It urged its remaining power to carry out the most intense struggle. However, Wang Lu found a new trick. He urged the magical power inside his body according to the non-phase sword art, and then suddenly released it. Although the area of defense was only a little bit, the defensive power was doubled. It was unknown whether it was Wang Lu's good luck or the puppy's bad luck, but after several times of struggling, the attack point was successfully predicted and blocked. Hee toss and turn, toss and turn. The more you struggle, the happier I, your uncle, am. I like the look of this little thing wailing and moaning under me. Seeing that this pot of fragrant meat was about to be cooked, Wang Lu was overjoyed. However, the next moment, "You pervert, let me out." "What the hell?" The voice suddenly sounded in his ear, which startled Wang Lu. The magical power inside his body was diverted, and his hand that was pressing the pot lid accidentally loosened. As a result, the puppy was also quick-witted. It immediately took the opportunity to jump out, bringing along with it a hot soup, which emitted a tempting aroma. That small pot was not an ordinary one. It could automatically clean the ingredients in the pot and add seasoning appropriately. After the puppy was cooked for a while, the blood and mud on its fur were cleaned, but the soy sauce, seasoning and other ingredients made it look very embarrassed. Under the horrified eyes of Wang Lu, the puppy shook its fur, splashing the soup all over the floor, and then raised its head, filled with righteous indignation. You pervert. You actually want to eat me? Wang Lu was already surprised. This dog thing can actually talk? Hearing this, the puppy froze for a moment. It forgot its previous anger and immediately proudly said, "What's so great about talking? I can also sing." "That's amazing. I haven't heard a dog sing, let me hear it." The puppy became even more proud. "Oh. Oh hey. Not bad, not bad. You can talk and sing. You're really a rare dog." Humph. The puppy raised its head and puffed out its chest proudly, completely forgetting that it had just been thrown into the pot to be cooked as a piece of fragrant meat. Such a strange dog, eating it will definitely be a different taste. As Wang Lu said this, he took the small pot and prepared to pour it on the dog's head. The puppy was so scared that its fur stood on end. "You still want to eat me? Nonsense, I've already thrown out 5 meat buns. I have to get back some capital, right? Tell me honestly, shouldn't you repay me for eating 5 of my buns?" The puppy was stunned. Seeing it like this, Wang Lu had a plan in mind. He said again, "I see that you're also a foodie. Do you know what the most delicious thing in the world is?" The puppy made a prompt decision. "Of course it's meat." "What meat?" The puppy tilted its head and began to recall the various kinds of meat it had eaten. Actually, there weren't many kinds. After a long time, it hesitated. "Beef? Idiot." Wang Lu disdainfully said, "It seems that a foodie like you has limited knowledge. You don't know what real good meat tastes like. Let me tell you, real good meat has a tender texture and the meat is tight and plump. After careful processing, the color is bright, the smell is fragrant, and the taste is delicious. It's tough but not stiff in the mouth, tender but not greasy." The puppy listened to Wang Lu's words and couldn't help but drool. What kind of meat is that? It's so delicious? Dog meat?" Wang Lu pointed at the puppy. "It's the meat on your body. Woof." Wang Lu's smile was unusually sinister. "How about it? You've eaten so much meat but you've never eaten dog meat, right? Woof. If you haven't eaten dog meat before, you've lived your life in vain. The delicious taste of that meat is so delicious that once you've tasted it, all other meat in the world will be tasteless. The best food you've eaten before can't even compare to dog meat. That taste can't be described with words. If you don't taste it yourself, you won't be able to understand. Woof. It just so happens that I have a pot, a bowl, and seasonings here. My cooking skills are also passable. Then, do you want to taste real good meat?" The puppy was stunned for a long time. It had a conflicted expression on its face, as if it was fighting with the heavens in its heart. A moment later, the little thing struggled and gently lifted a hind leg to its mouth. Wang Lu was about to explode with laughter. This dog's brain was too funny. Chapter 135. In the end, Wang Lu did not eat the stupid dog. The reason was that the dog was too stupid, and Wang Lu was afraid that it would affect its intelligence. Previously, Wang Lu used words to deceive the dog, claiming that dog meat was the most delicious food in the world. In fact, although dog meat was fragrant, it was not the most delicious food in the world. In the field of food, it was like a beauty contest or a world essay. It was difficult to really decide who was the most delicious food in the world. However, the stupid dog actually believed it and bit itself in pain. Because of this, Wang Lu concluded that the dog's IQ was comparable to that of senior sister Lu Li, so it was better not to eat it. As for the 5 meat buns from before, alas, meat buns were used to hit a dog and there was no return. Moreover, they had been left there for a year. In fact, from the moment the dog spoke, Wang Lu had basically given up the idea of eating meat. It was not that intelligent creatures could not eat meat. When it came to the meat of spirit beasts that could increase one's power by a certain amount, Wang Lu would not hesitate to eat it. However, compared to eating meat, a talking dog was undoubtedly more valuable. No matter how inconspicuous it looked, this dog rushed in from the black tide, and it must have a great secret. Since it could speak, it was much better to let it speak than to eat it. "So, who are you? Woof. Where are you from? Woof. Are you a local creature? Woof. What is your mother's surname? Woof woof. Damn, speak human language. It's very tiring, woof." Thus, Wang Lu realized that for this stupid dog, speaking human language was an extremely difficult technical task. If it had not been for the fact that it was about to be cooked into a pot of fragrant meat last night, it would not even be bothered to speak. So much so that Wang Lu even began to consider whether he should learn another dog language to communicate. What was even worse was that after Wang Lu tricked it into talking with a few steamed buns, he realized that the stupid dog was indeed a stupid dog. Although it could talk and sing songs, it just couldn't remember who it was or where it came from. When Wang Lu was pressed, it began to howl and roll on the ground, showing a painful posture as if it couldn't bear to recall the past. After lamenting that the stupid dog's IQ was hopeless, Wang Lu took out the pots, bowls and seasonings again to prepare the meal. The dog was shocked. "What are you doing? I'll treat you to dog meat. Quickly thank me." No matter how stupid the dog was, it knew that it could only survive between its dog life and dog meat. It quickly shook its head and said, "No, no. Then I'll eat alone." "Wait, you insist on eating me? Aren't we friends?" Wang Lu was also shocked. "When did I become friends with a dog like you?" The puppy was even more surprised. "If I eat your bun, we'll be friends forever." "What the hell? Are you really eating buns? You're the one who owes me a favor, okay?" The puppy thought for a moment, then puffed out its chest and put on a righteous look. "You're right. I ate your buns, so I owe you a favor. From now on, I'll be your loyal little brother. I'll do whatever you want me to do." Wang Lu said that it was indeed a stupid dog. Although it was stupid, it was very loyal and had a natural affinity with humans. 5 buns was enough to buy its heart of a wolf and lungs of a dog. "Okay, then come to my bowl." From then on, Wang Lu had an additional companion in his journey of survival in the desolate wilderness. Given the stupid dog's IQ, Wang Lu would definitely not eat it. Since he couldn't eat it, he could only raise it as a pet. Although this stupid dog could speak and sing songs most of the time, it was no different from an ordinary stupid dog. After recognizing Wang Lu as its master, it ran around and jumped around him, wagging its tail and showing a silly smile. It secretly hoped that Wang Lu would give it more meat buns to beat. It was qualified as a brainless pet. Soon the days passed by one after another. More than 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. One man and one dog experienced a black tide together, killed several dead spirits that entered the cave, and then continued to wander around the West Mountain. They didn't talk much every day, but Wang Lu gradually understood this stupid dog a little more. This dog was indeed not an ordinary dog. An ordinary dog would not be as stupid as it. It was true that it could not remember where it was born and its name. In fact, it only remembered what happened in the past few months. It appeared in the wilderness out of nowhere and there were dangers everywhere. Relying on the instinct of a beast, it avoided those powerful monsters and looked for relatively weak prey. When the black tide came, it learned from the other monsters and hid in the cave. Not long ago, the cave where it was hiding was infiltrated by the black tide. Before the dead spirits entered, it had already perceived the crisis and cleverly ran out of the cave, fleeing in the dark. Unfortunately, it bumped into Wang Lu's cave and almost became a pot of fragrant meat. In addition, this dog was indeed much more powerful than an ordinary dog. Although it was only a foot long, its strength, speed, and especially its sharp teeth, were not inferior to a tiger or a wolf in its prime. No, if an ordinary tiger or wolf met this dog, it would be bitten to death in 2 or 3 rounds. The little guy was small and stupid, but according to the classification standard of the Spirit Sword Mountain, it was at least a top rank too. Moreover, this didn't take into account the other special abilities that this stupid dog might have. Generally, monsters always had some special ability as their survival capital. For example, the Stonewood ape that he met at the clear sky peak of Spirit Sword Mountain had unusually tough skin, and the ghost monkey was good at illusion and bewitchment. What was this stupid dog's ability? It didn't even remember. After watching it for 2 days, Wang Lu could only see one thing. Its digestive ability was excellent. There was nothing to eat in the savage land. Although the meat of some monsters looked edible, even Wang Lu was not interested in using it to challenge his poison resistance limit. However, this stupid dog could eat it very happily. On this day, Wang Lu and the stupid dog cooperated to hunt down a rather large monster. Wang Lu used his non-phase sword art to entangle it, and the stupid dog bit the other party's throat. After that, the monster's corpse quickly decayed, turning into a half-solid half-liquid thick soup, which was very stinky. Wang Lu felt that even a pile of excrement was more edible than this pile of things. However, the stupid dog could drool and swallow the bones that were several times bigger than it. You can even eat this thing. Could it be that your real identity is a fungus? Forget it. Just eat it. After eating and drinking to its heart's content, the puppy happily rolled on the ground. While chewing the few steamed buns, Wang Lu began to miss the various delicacies on the Spirit Sword Mountain. Seeing that Wang Lu was a bit bored, the pet dog tactfully tilted its head and asked, "Are you unhappy?" Wang Lu snappily slapped the remaining half of the steamed bun on the dog's face. Eating this thing every day, who could be happy? The puppy tilted its head and racked its poor brain, trying to understand its master's mood. After a while, it said, "If you really want to eat, I know a good thing. I also wanted to eat it before, but I can't beat that guy, so I can't eat it." That guy is a really good thing. If I could eat it, it would be great. That thing is really good, I can smell it, it's different from other things. The puppy's human speech was not very fluent, it was rambling a lot, only a look of regret could be seen on its face. However, while speaking, the stupidity in the dog's eyes gradually faded and was replaced by a fierce and greedy look. The puppy licked its mouth, looked up and asked, "That thing, do you want to eat it?" Wang Lu froze for a moment, and then the corner of his mouth moved, revealing his white teeth. Of course. 3 days later, the black tide of the western mountain came to the earth as usual. Before the night fell, the monsters in the mountains had been hiding in the caves, shivering in fear. The black tide had infiltrated the earth everywhere, and it was impossible to tell when the caves that they had taken as shelters would be flooded by the black tide. Countless dead souls would devour the creatures in the caves, leaving no bones behind. As for above the ground, even the most powerful monsters in the western mountain did not dare to appear above the ground when the black tide came. It was not an area where living creatures could stand. However, in this forbidden area, a man and a dog quietly stood on the peak of the western mountain, like stone statues, letting the darkness swallow them. This man and dog were naturally Wang Lu and his new pet. 3 days ago, the stupid dog told Wang Lu that there was a very good thing to eat. Wang Lu did not ask much, nor did he have any communication with the stupid dog. But 3 days later, when the black tide was about to come, they did not return to the cave, but climbed up a small mountain. The food that the stupid dog mentioned was obviously the dead spirits in the black tide, and it was a very powerful kind. It was hard to say whether it was strong or not, but the power of chaos must be very strong. In other words, it might drop the best. As a foodie, the stupid dog's instinct was very sensitive. It could smell what was delicious and what was not delicious. The last time they passed through the black tide, several dead spirits rushed into the cave. The stupid dog's eyes lit up, and it bit a group of ghost fire to death. God knows why the invisible ghost fire was killed by the dog's teeth. Then the ghost fire exploded, and bright jades fell all over the ground. As for the other strange creatures, the stupid dog was not interested. Later, it cooperated with Wang Lu to kill them one by one, but nothing good was dropped. When Wang Lu asked, the stupid dog only said that except for the ghost fire, there was nothing to eat. And the good thing that it could not forget was at least 10,000 times more delicious than the ghost fire that fell all over the ground. With the stupid dog's IQ, whether it could understand the meaning of 10,000 was still unknown. However, in its eyes, the good thing must be a good thing. And that good thing was hidden in the black tide. If he wanted to kill it, naturally he had to step into the black tide and take the initiative to look for it. This was not a suicidal move. Although when he first came to the savage land in the face of the black tide's erosion, Wang Lu even lost an arm, but after a year things were not the same as before. Although he could not completely resist the black tide's poison, with a special method, he could ignore its toxicity for a short period of time. When he held the sword with one arm, the sword defense created by the non-phase sword art was more than twice as strong as a year ago. More importantly, after experiencing the baptism of the black tide for dozens of times, Wang Lu had begun to be familiar with this kind of darkness that made countless creatures despair. When the black tide came, there was no light, no sound. Even if there was a huge corpse walking in the black tide, it would not make a sound, as if it was invisible and impossible to guard against. However, in the past year there were too many battles which made Wang Lu's perception more and more sensitive. Especially in the black tide, when he was with the dead spirits, he could even clearly perceive the existence of the dead spirits around him. And the dead spirits, which were no longer mysterious, were actually not that scary. When the last ray of light on the earth was obscured by the darkness, Wang Lu closed his eyes and clearly perceived the sudden arrival of countless dead spirits around him. He knew that the time had come. Dogs, show the way. In the darkness, the stupid dog's barking was particularly striking, and equally striking was Wang Lu's scolding voice. Stupid dog, speak human language. To the left. One man and one dog immediately stepped to the left and jumped down from the peak. This peak was specially selected by Wang Lu. It was located in the middle of the West Mountain, which could take care of any direction. Once the black tide food appeared, the fastest way to get there would be to go straight from this peak. And in the process of falling, countless ghost fires and ghosts whizzed toward them. However, Wang Lu's non-phase sword art was launched. The spiritual treasure level sword of Mount Kuan drew out an inviolable 3-feet sword defense, which firmly isolated all the dead spirits, whether they were tangible or intangible. In the protective circle of the sword defense, the stupid dog only felt at ease. When it landed, it let out a satisfied roar and then moved its nose. In front, it's right in front. The taste of the black-tide food that the stupid dog could never forget was firmly engraved in the memory space of the stupid dog. The little thing frantically moved its limbs, leading Wang Lu to the direction of the food. At the same time, more and more dead spirits began to gather. For this black tide, perhaps it had been a long time since they encountered such a daring challenger. All the dead spirits around were attracted. However, although the gathered dead spirits were like mountains and seas, under the indestructible 3-feet sword defense, they were unable to do anything. The dead spirits continued to collide with the non-phase sword defense, but they were constantly bounced back by the non-phase sword defense, making a silent twisted roar. In the past this might be enough to make people tremble, but at this time it seemed like a joke. The stupid dog laughed wildly without any scruples. "Ah, weak, really weak," Wang Lu coldly snorted. "Don't waste your limited brain power on this, seriously point the way." At this time Wang Lu could easily block them, but because the really powerful dead spirits in the black tide had not yet appeared, there was not much time left for one man and one dog to hunt. After being hit by Wang Lu, the stupid dog calmed down and moved its nose again to lock the position. In front, straight ahead, the smell is strong and powerful, strong and powerful. With that, the puppy ran madly while drooling. Wang Lu also sneered and followed closely behind. A moment later, he saw the strong and powerful smell and was suddenly startled. "Stupid dog, you're really King deceiving me? Strong and powerful?" Not surprising. Straight ahead, more than 10 giant beasts the size of small mountains were staring at them with ferocious eyes in the dark. Chapter 136. There was no light and no sound in the black tide, but the sense of existence of these 10 giant dead spirits was so strong that it was like a hurricane blowing in his face. And with his dark perception, Wang Lu's mind had clearly imprinted the other party's ferocious eyes. That was a deep-rooted hatred for the living. Even among the dead there was rarely such a strong and vicious hatred. In fact, not all dead spirits were irreconcilable with the living. Right now, the fundamentals of the 9 regions could barely be considered as peaceful and prosperous. Among the cultivators, the division between good and evil was not that intense and distinct. For hundreds of years, there were even many unresolved love stories in the immortal cultivation world. In some places, there was even a strange trend of having a zombie girlfriend. Of course, the premise was that the other party must be beautiful enough. However, the dead spirits in the black tide were different from those ordinary zombies and ghosts in the 9 regions. Their essence of existence was more distorted and more resentful. Although they obviously had a certain level of wisdom, they had no desire to live in harmony with the living. Every time they came, they would purge the living, leaving no room for mediation. Were it not for this, with Wang Lu's ability after surviving in the Western Mountain for a year, he should have developed these dead spirits into wisdom sect's followers, striving to sublimate the whole world together. "Stupid dog, King deceiving me?" Led by the stupid dog, they rushed into the encirclement of the 10 giant dead spirits. Needless to say, the good thing in the eyes of the stupid dog was probably not ordinary in the circle of dead spirits. Therefore it was heavily guarded. From the first encounter, fortunately, they didn't encounter the savage corpse king-level dead spirit. With Wang Lu's current strength, there was no pressure for him to fight against 3 or 4 of them. However, if he fought against 10 of them, it would be a bit like courting death. Not to mention that around the 10 giant dead spirits, the zombies and ghost flames were already like a tide. However, as a professional adventurer, he knew that the more it was like this, the more he couldn't be afraid. Therefore Wang Lu raised his sword and pointed forward. "Stupid dog, charge!" Without hesitation, the stupid dog charged straight at the 10 giant dead spirits. At this time, it was so close that it could clearly smell the fragrance of the peerless delicacy. It was right in the middle of the 10 giant dead spirits. Of course, due to its beastly instincts, it could clearly smell the scent of death. Any one of the 10 giant beasts was not something it could contend against. If it joined forces with Wang Lu, they could hunt them down, but being surrounded by 10 of them would only lead to death. But in the end it still rushed forward, and in an instant, it burst forth with astonishing speed, leaving Wang Lu behind. At the same time, the 10 dead spirits roared soundlessly and reached out to grab it. Boom! Several dazzling flames exploded in the darkness. That was the light that was rarely seen in the black tide. Although it seemed weak and wavering under the boundless darkness, it still burned strongly. These flames seemed to be a dividing line between yin and yang, light and darkness, black and white. As soon as the boundary was drawn, the deathly stillness and murderous aura of the land was suddenly illuminated with color. The 10 giant dead spirits and their ferocious giant hands became clearly visible, and under the illumination of the flames, they were alternately smeared with light and shadow. The roars of the surrounding dead spirits also exploded in an instant, suddenly filling the ears, and countless resentful curses and pain were mixed into a ball. This was the bright jade flame, the only permitted light source in the black tide. At the same time as the stupid dog rushed forward, Wang Lu ignited all the bright jades he had collected in his mustard seed bag and scattered them in all directions. The flames dispersed the black tide, and even scared away the giant dead spirits. Under the flames, those big fellows that were the size of small hills withdrew their hands and staggered back. That was the instinctive fear of the bright jade flamed. However, as these giant dead spirits retreated, they exposed the object that they were supposed to protect. The landing point of Wang Lu's bright jade flame was very precise, and it just happened to isolate the one surrounded by the giant dead spirits. However, as soon as the real body of the dead spirit was revealed, Wang Lu suddenly exclaimed, stopped his footsteps, and could no longer launch a heroic charge. In his line of sight, surrounded by a few clusters of bright jade fire, there was a human-shaped dead spirit with a dark body and shiny skin. It was holding its head with its arms and roaring helplessly in the fire. The dead spirit was about the height of a person, and its appearance was very similar to that of a human. Because its whole body was naked, the muscles and smooth and shiny skin could be clearly seen. Although its head was held by its arms, it could not be seen clearly, but with its dark skin, and the giant thing hanging down between its legs. What the hell? I knew there must be a lot of these abnormal black uncles in the black tide. Damn it, you damn dog, it turns out that the so-called strong and powerful is this strong and powerful? As a professional adventurer, Wang Lu did have an outstanding mentality that would not change even if a mountain collapsed in front of him. After embarking on the road of immortal cultivation with the help of the non-phase Heart Sutra, his primordial spirit was refined, and his mind was strong. Although he still had emotions like surprise, it was extremely difficult to affect his actions in reality. But this time, the dark skin of the dead spirit did make Wang Lu hesitate for a moment, and even his charging footsteps stopped. On the other hand, the damn dog continued to charge forward without any pressure. Taking advantage of the fact that the opponent was caught off guard by the bright jade fire, it bit the opponent's arm, trying to tear it off and expose the throat that was protected by the arm. Since it was a humanoid dead spirit, then it would bite the throat and then cut off the head. Theoretically, the dead spirit and the living spirit structure were completely different, but in the previous black tide hunt, they had used this method to kill a lot of humanoid dead spirits. And after being bitten by the stupid dog's teeth, the black undead spirit's howl suddenly doubled in volume. It was clear that it was in extreme pain, because in just a few short breaths of time, the muscles on its arm had been torn apart and half melted. Suddenly suffering a serious injury, the dead spirit's arm loosened, revealing the part that connected the head and the body, the throat. The stupid dog was ecstatic. Its hind legs kicked the body of the black dead spirit, and its body rushed forward, its 2 rows of sharp teeth biting the throat of the other party. As long as this bite connected, the victory would be decided. Perhaps its other abilities were not obvious, but its digestive ability was so strong that once it entered its mouth, there was nothing it could not digest. Even if it was an existence that was much higher than itself. This dark-skinned dead spirit was undoubtedly extremely strong. Although it was protected by 10 giant dead spirits, its own strength was above those big guys. If it was in the black tide, even if the dog and the human joined forces, the chance of winning was barely half. However, at this time, this black uncle was shocked by the bright jade flame and had no time to resist. However, just as the stupid dog was about to succeed, Wang Lu's voice also came. Stupid dog, come back. The stupid dog was stunned for a moment, but it was not thinking about why Wang Lu wanted to withdraw at this time. Did he want to take the spoils of the battle alone or something else? It was just that, for a moment, it could not react to what the other party was saying. The stupid dog's IQ was limited. When all its brain power was used for fighting, its processing of language would be abnormally slow. In the previous few hunts, because it was not very strenuous, the stupid dog did not put too much energy into it, and had the time to take care of Wang Lu's command. However, at this time, in front of a peerless delicacy, the excessive impulse made it temporarily lose the ability to listen to commands. Behind it, Wang Lu's heart sank. Because after the initial shock, he had already recognized the black-skinned dead spirit, and was very glad that the other party's strange appearance made him not rush forward. Because this was a desolate barbarian corpse general. Moreover, judging from the dark color of its body, it was one of the famous black poison corpse generals. It was almost equivalent to the low-level Shudan Xiaoming. Although it was not particularly powerful, it was, especially cunning. It should be true that the corpse general was frightened by the bright jade fire, but if it was so frightened that it covered its head and fled like a rat, unable to resist, then that would be too much of an act. The stupid dog bit off half of the opponent's hand, and seemed to have gained the upper hand, but the hidden murderous intent was about to surface. Besides its strong digestive ability, the stupid dog had no other redeeming qualities. It absolutely could not withstand the counterattack of a black poison corpse general, and if the stupid dog died, Wang Lu would not be able to kill the low-level Shudan Xiaoming. This hunt would be a failure. It was hateful that the stupid dog's IQ was so low that at such a critical time, it could not understand commands. Fortunately, he still had a trump card in his hand. Woof! At this critical moment, a dog bark sounded. The stupid dog was startled, subconsciously loosened its mouth and flew back. However, Wang Lu's face was gloomy. He did not have the arrogance of a foreign language expert and barked. This was definitely a shame that he would remember for a lifetime. When he returned, he would definitely make the stupid dog cut off one of its legs as repayment. At the same time, the skin of the black poison corpse general melted, and a black, highly toxic soup flowed out. This kind of poison could be digested by the stupid dog, but if it landed on its body, it would undoubtedly die. This was the killing move that the black poison corpse general used to deal with close enemies. After narrowly avoiding a fatal move, the stupid dog was still in a state of shock. It looked back at Wang Lu and asked, "You can actually speak dog language?" However, just as it turned its head, it heard Wang Lu roar, "Idiot, look in front of you." Wang Lu really did not expect that this dog could be this stupid. The black poison corpse general was in front of it, but it actually dared to turn its head so unscrupulously. Did it really think that it was not dying fast enough? How could the black poison corpse general let go of this opportunity? Under its melted skin, a deathly white bone whip fiercely lashed out. It was too late. The moment the bone whip appeared, Wang Lu had already calculated the result. The stupid dog's momentary distraction doomed it to be unable to survive this blow. Its reaction and eruption were not as good as the black poison corpse general. Moreover, the opposite party was caught off guard, so there was no chance. In the last black tide hunting operation, he used his non-phase sword art to protect the stupid dog so that it could attack with ease. However, this time, because of an accident, the two of them were separated, revealing a huge flaw. Unfortunately, although his thinking speed was particularly fast, his body could not keep up. Non-phase sword art was originally not good at speed. Although he tried his best to catch up, he was still a few meters behind. This was the sorrow of being a sword cultivator. Often in a fight, a few meters of distance was the difference between life and death. However, it was also at this time that the immature card had the significance to be used. Wang Lu stepped forward and brandished his sword. The cold light of the sword of Mount Kuan flashed, and the bone whip that was a few meters away seemed to be hit by a heavy blow. It stagnated in midair for a moment and could no longer move forward even an inch. And just an inch before the sharp braid of the bone whip, the stupid dog still didn't know that it had circled around in a life-and-death situation. A moment later, fine cracks bloomed on the surface of the bone whip. The heavy blow was blocked, but the bone whip itself was also not light. The black poison corpse general screamed as it retracted the bone whip. Its fierce eyes turned to Wang Lu, just in time to see the opposite party's sincere smile. Obviously, he was a few meters away, but he was able to repel the heavy blow of the corpse general. This was the first time he used it, but he succeeded in one fell swoop. This innate non-phase sword chi was really powerful. Chapter 137. In the boundless darkness, a few bright jade flames were the only source of light. Amidst the light, the black-skinned black poison corpse general retracted its bone whip in bewilderment. In front of it, a man and a dog were glaring at it. The deadlock lasted for less than a breath of time. With an angry roar, the stupid dog took the lead to launch an attack. Just now, because of its momentary absent-mindedness, it was almost cut in half by the bone whip. Wang Lu promptly used his innate non-phase sword chi to save it. In that split second, the stupid dog had no time to react, let alone think. It only knew that at this time the enemy was standing in front of it, and its master was guarding behind it with his sword. There was only one thing it could do: bite it to death. A moment ago, the scene of the black poison corpse general melting its own skin and dripping poison seemed to have been forgotten by the stupid dog. Once again, it rushed forward and fiercely bit the corpse general's arm. The muscles and bones that were as hard as steel were broken and melted by the dog's sharp teeth, which continued to deepen the corpse general's wound. In just a few breaths of time, a thick arm was torn off. The process was unbelievably smooth. Of course, this was not the corpse general deliberately going easy on him. In those few breaths of time, he actually used more than 30 different methods, trying to kill the mad dog that was biting his body. However, without exception, all of them were broken by the non-phase sword chi of the cultivators a few steps away. Whether it was the colorless and odorless poison gas, the heavy and powerful bone whip, or the demonic technique that was stimulated by the power of death and primal chaos, all of them seemed to have hit an invisible but solid wall. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't hurt the opponent. In this black tide, the corpse general had killed countless creatures. Occasionally he was also repelled by creatures that were too powerful, but he had never encountered such a strange situation. His natural cunning made him want to retreat. However, at this time the stupid dog intuitively felt the change in him and bit off his ankle. It threw him to the ground. When it lowered its head, the corpse general saw a pair of red and crazy beast eyes. It seemed to have no regard for its own life as it frantically tore at the corpse general's body. Its 2 rows of sharp teeth could no longer withstand the excessive biting and several of them broke. Blood flowed from its mouth, but how could a wild beast care about this? All damage had been blocked by its master, so all it had to do was bite the corpse general to death. However, its beastly instincts were roaring madly in its mind, urging it to kill its opponent in the shortest time possible, no matter the cost. It was as if he was walking on a thin rope. Below the rope was a bottomless abyss, and on the other side was a glorious paradise. If he could take a step correctly, he would be able to reach the other side safely, but if he took a wrong step, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. The stupid dog didn't know why it had this feeling, but compared to thinking, it had always trusted its intuition more. Therefore, under the protection of the innate non-phase sword chi, it went crazy unscrupulously. Surrounded by the flames, it set off a storm of flesh and blood. The black poison corpse general was finally dead. As a dead spirit, it shouldn't have the concept of death. Living in the black tide, even if its body was destroyed, it could still reform in the black tide, unless it was killed by a living being. And whether it was Wang Lu or the stupid dog, they were undoubtedly a standard living being. When the stupid dog finally bit the corpse general's throat and tore off its head from its body, the black poison corpse general, with infinite resentment, died. The stupid dog's mouth was dripping with blood. The excessive crazy attack had brought it great damage, but at this time, it seemed to be unaware of it. After the red in its eyes dissipated a little, it turned its eyes back. Wang Lu lightly lowered the sword of Mount Kuan, still smiling. However, from his lower lip to his throat, and from his throat to the front of his lapel, blood flowed out like a waterfall. "Damn, if I was a bit slower, I would have lost my life," Wang Lu said. His body staggered, almost losing his balance. For a long time, Wang Lu always thought that, as a professional adventurer, even if he didn't dare to say that his IQ was the highest in the world, it shouldn't be a problem for him to crush most of his peers. In the past few years, from the Immortal Gathering to the establishment of the Wisdom Sect after he left the mountain, all kinds of magnificent feats proved this point. However, in this 1 year in the Savage Land, Wang Lu had to admit that he had made a stupid mistake. His master deceived him into coming to the Savage Land in order to let him cultivate the innate non-phase sword chi. In this 1 year, Wang Lu diligently cultivated in the Western Mountain. Whether it was his chi cultivating stage, sword bone, heart sutra, or other related methods, he had made great progress. However, he couldn't cultivate the non-phase sword chi. In the beginning, Wang Lu thought that his level wasn't high enough. After all, in theory, this non-phase sword chi belonged to the advanced cultivation method of the non-phase method, so it was understandable that its basic skill requirement was higher. No matter how fast his cultivation progress was, he was still a chi cultivating stage cultivator, and he had only been cultivating in the Spirit Sword Mountain for more than 5 years. However, a few days ago when he fought with that stupid dog for the fragrant meat, he found out that things didn't seem to be what he thought. The reason why he couldn't cultivate the non-phase sword chi was perhaps because he had found the wrong method. For a professional adventurer, the method was always more important than the effort. A year of diligent cultivation was not worth showing off, because even someone as stupid as Wen Bao could easily cultivate for a year. The difficult thing was to find the right method so that he could get twice the result with half the effort. And this professional adventurer who had always been good at this time he had taken a stupid road. Innate non-phase sword chi couldn't be cultivated or used by ordinary methods. Actually, he should have been aware of this a long time ago. From the name alone he could see the clue. In the entire set of non-phase method, all of them were simply prefixed with the word non-phase, so why did the word innate non-phase sword chi have to be prefixed with the word innate? Was it because it looked more powerful, more noble and elegant? With his master's extremely bad character, it was absolutely impossible for her to be noble and elegant. Now that he thought about it, this was the hint that his master gave him 2 years ago. Innate, what is innate? What else in a chi cultivating stage cultivator could match the word innate? Of course it was innate lifespan. 3 years ago when this guy taught him the heaven-burning blood technique, he probably thought about this day. For a cultivator who had yet to reach the high-level chi cultivating stage, if he wanted to release the sword chi and maintain the powerful defensive power of the non-phase sword art, he could only do it by burning his lifespan and erupting a massive amount of magical power in a short period of time. The strength of the non-phase method lay in its toughness and stability, but its explosive power was almost zero. Only the heaven-burning blood technique could make up for this shortcoming. It was just that, he had always regarded this method as a special method for losers, and never associated it with the noble and elegant non-phase true inheritance. Therefore the so-called innate formless sword chi was, in fact, the pre-version of the formless sword chi. With the addition of the innate prefix, not only did it not become stronger, it became weaker. However, if a chi cultivating stage cultivator wanted to be able to release sword chi, this was the only way. After finally realizing this, Wang Lu only used 3 days to perfect the practice of the innate non-phase sword chi. Now that he used it for the first time in the Black Tide, it really succeeded in one fell swoop. From the beginning to the end, this was not a really difficult method. If he had realized earlier that he needed the heaven-burning blood technique, Wang Lu should have succeeded in practicing it within a month. But now it seemed like he had wasted a year of time. But then again, without this year's experiential learning, he wouldn't have met this stupid dog, and he wouldn't have been able to kill so many dead spirits in the Black Tide. And without this year's progress, he wouldn't have been able to throw the sword chi 4 or 5 meters away, and he wouldn't have had enough time to save the stupid dog. It was even more impossible for him to continuously release the sword chi 3 times to completely seal a low-level Shudan stage corpse general. The stupid dog's unbridled output was based on the foundation of Wang Lu's life. Every time he released the innate non-phase sword chi, it meant that 3 to 5 days of his innate lifespan was burned and decomposed. And just now, although it was only a short period of 10 breaths, Wang Lu had released the innate non-phase sword chi more than 100 times, which reduced his lifespan by more than a year. For a person with more than 100 years of innate lifespan, 1 year of lifespan seemed to be nothing. However, to burn all of this in 10 breaths of time, the burden on the body was unusually heavy. If he was a few breaths slower, the result would be hard to say. However, the outcome of the battle had already been decided, so there was no need to worry too much. Wang Lu took a few steps forward and walked toward the corpse. "Where's the good stuff?" The stupid dog barked, sniffed, and then pulled out a scarlet, pulsating meatball from the corpse's chest. It then looked at that meatball with a reluctant look, jumped onto Wang Lu's shoulder, and then delivered the meatball to Wang Lu's mouth. Even with the vast knowledge of Spirit Sword Sect's top student, he still couldn't recognize the origin of this meatball. However, wasn't the purpose of this hunt just for this peerless delicacy that made this stupid dog infatuated? As soon as he bit the meatball, a stream of boiling liquid suddenly flowed into his throat. Wang Lu didn't even have the time to taste whether the taste was bitter or sweet, because that unusually high temperature had already burned his entire esophagus. Holy sh*T, is this magma? Since he started cultivating non-phase sword bone, Wang Lu's body had long been tempered to be incomparably tough. Moreover, he cultivated both internally and externally. Even if it was boiling hot oil, he could still drink it like herbal tea. However, at this time this liquid actually burned his esophagus, and at the same time the pain quickly spread to his stomach and then to his whole body. However, after that, in the midst of the pain, a surge of vitality exploded from his stomach. Wang Lu was stunned for a moment, and then he finally understood what exactly was contained in this meatball. It was the purest life source energy, vitality. Moreover, it was innate lifespan. In the 9 regions, spiritual objects that could prolong life were not uncommon, but spiritual objects that could increase innate lifespan could be described as priceless. For a time, Wang Lu didn't even have the time to analyze why this savage dead spirit would have such a pure life source energy. He only felt that the energy that poured into his body was like a torrential river. 10 years, 20 years. Unknowingly, it had actually become more than 100 years. Wang Lu's original innate lifespan was about 100 years, but at this time, it had doubled. Regarding lifespan itself, Wang Lu didn't care about it. He was only 17 years old, and as a human he hadn't even reached his peak, so he didn't need to consider the problem of prolonging his lifespan. However, the doubling of innate lifespan meant the sublimation of life. Innate lifespan of more than 200 years was a privilege that only Foundation establishment cultivators could have. However, Wang Lu had now sublimated his life to the level of Foundation establishment cultivator in advance. As the top student of Spirit Sword Sect, he was very clear that this at least meant that in the future, there would be no bottleneck. For other cultivators, even if they had the same heavenly spirit root, there was no absolute bottleneck in the Foundation establishment stage, and without the help of external objects, they would still need to accumulate their cultivation base to break through the bottleneck. However, in the future, as long as Wang Lu practiced step by step, the Foundation establishment stage would be a matter of course. Even unknowingly, there was a high possibility that he would succeed. As for the other benefits, they were countless. This Black Poison Corpse General was indeed worthy to be the grand prize of this savage dead spirit journey. According to the chaotic law of this place, under normal circumstances, he didn't know how many corpse generals he had to kill in order to get such a top-quality item. The value of this meatball that contained 100 years of lifespan was probably not inferior to the sword embryo that Zhu Shiryao had obtained from killing the Corpse King. It was truly a top-grade item. Fortunately, this stupid dog's sense of smell was sharp enough to actually be able to find the Black Poison Corpse General in the boundless black tide using a method that transcended karma. A moment later, when Wang Lu opened his eyes, he saw the stupid dog swallowing the skin of the meatball along with the remaining juice inside. Its face showed that it still wanted to eat more. After a fierce battle, the man and the dog shared the loot almost 370. As the owner and the combat commander, Wang Lu took the biggest portion, and the stupid dog also unceremoniously swallowed the smaller portion, feeling extremely satisfied. However, this time the stupid dog was a bit more astute. After eating the delicious food, it vigilantly looked around and muttered in confusion. Killing the corpse general was certainly worthy of celebration, but what about after that? The two of them were still in the black tide, surrounded by countless dead spirits. Because of the death of the Black Poison Corpse General, they were doubly angry. There was still one day before the black tide would recede, but the bright jade flame burning all around them was already on the verge of collapse. If these flames were in the cave, they could last for several hours, but under the direct pressure of the black tide, they would be extinguished in at most the time it took to drink a cup of tea. The man and the dog had tried their best to end the battle as quickly as possible, but time was running out. Moreover, Wang Lu had just thrown everything he had, and there was no bright jade left in his hands. It seemed that there was no hope of breaking out of the encirclement. Woof! Feeling the rapid weakening of the bright jade flame, the stupid dog began to feel nervous. Oh, don't panic. At this time, all we need to do is ask for help from the audience. As Wang Lu spoke, he took out the last trump card of this savage dead spirit journey from his mustard seed bag, the Lingjian School's talisman of communication. No matter where the user was, even in the abyss of the demon world, as long as the talisman was lit, it could send a message back to the mountain. 3 years ago, before the sex training, he had used the sex points to exchange for one, and it just so happened that he needed to use it at this time. Master, my cultivation is done, come and pick me up. After a moment, his master's voice sounded, I don't have time right now, wait for 2 days. Chapter 138. In the savage land, in the black tide of the West Mountain, under the gradually dimming light of the bright jade fire, a young cultivator's face was also cloudy. Master, I can't afford to wait. Oh, you are so young, why can't you wait? It's just 1 or 2 days, it's not like I don't care about you. You have endured for a year, can't you hold on for 1 or 2 days? Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. I'm going to get busy. Hey, someone is going to die here. Then why are you still talking nonsense with me? Hurry up and save your life. Seeing that communication was useless, Wang Lu had no choice but to ask, Master, are you receiving a guest? Oh. The sound of someone vomiting blood made Wang Lu feel relieved. Evil disciple, how dare you slander me? Not really, right? With your moral integrity, I can only say that it is a reasonable assumption. And I used a question to refute the rumor. Why are you so anxious? If you are not receiving a guest, why are you so busy that you don't even care about your disciple's life? The other side was silent for a long time, and then asked with uncertainty, Are you really going to die soon? Don't you have nothing better to do than to tease me? Wang Lu cursed, I have burned a heavenly talisman to talk to you, this heavenly talisman is enough to protect you for a year. Why would I invest so much just to tease you? His master was also anxious, You naughty boy, you actually used a heavenly talisman? Wait for me, I will go. After a few breaths of time, the endless black tide suddenly stirred up a great wave. For this absolutely silent space, this wave was undoubtedly a great phenomenon. And after a moment the black tide opened up, and a woman in white descended from the sky on a bamboo. The golden light shone on the earth, and the black tide of the West Mountain struggled to escape and dissipate in a few seconds. The dead spirits that could not retreat in time, under the sunlight, emitted ear-piercing screams, their bodies ignited into smoke, and after a moment they completely disappeared. The black tide that made countless creatures in the West Mountain tremble with fear, and every 10 days there was no escape, unexpectedly died. For a moment the stupid dog's mouth was wide open, and its round eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. It stared fixedly at the golden light in the sky, and after a moment, tears began to flow from its eyes. At this time even Wang Lu felt speechless. The black tide of the Western Mountain was only considered as the edge of the entire savage land, but there was no lack of savage corpse king-level powerhouses in the black tide. However, the entire black tide had unexpectedly melted and disintegrated in a single encounter with his master. Was the peak of King Pill that awesome? Master could tell that he was really anxious. With a flash of green light, he appeared in front of Wang Lu. "Where's the enemy?" Wang Lu looked at her in silence. "Didn't you say that you were in a life-and-death crisis? Where is the enemy?" Wang Lu continued to remain silent, his heart filled with complicated feelings. His master looked around and released his primordial spirit. After a while his gaze returned to Wang Lu. He frowned and said, "That's strange. You don't seem to be sick and your innate qi is full. You don't look like you're dying from a serious injury. Where's your left hand? Is it broken?" Wang Lu sighed. "Master, you're really a big idiot." In any case, with the arrival of his master, the door to the savage land had been opened. This year-long trip was finally over. Wang Lu returned to the mountain with his dog and the spoils of war that he had obtained from the black tide of the Western Mountain. Along the way Wang Lu had intended to tell his master about his experience, but after thinking about it, he felt that there was not much to say to this slut. "I picked up a dog." The stupid dog revealed a flattering smile. "Hachi hachi." His master glanced at it. "Oh, is this your reserve food?" The stupid dog's gaze suddenly turned bitter. Wang Lu thought for a moment. "This thing's IQ is too low, it can't be eaten." "It's okay. In the future I'll find a chance to pack it up and send it to your senior sister Lu Li. Maybe it can nourish her brain. By the way, I've mastered my innate non-phase sword chi. Oh, it's slower than expected. And I've played too much this year. Oh, it doesn't matter. In any case your progress is already quite ahead. Slowing down a bit can be considered taking care of the feelings of your fellow disciples. But seeing that your innate chi is so abundant, you'll probably reach the chi cultivating stage in a few days." In the battle with the Black Poison Corpse General, Wang Lu had continuously released innate non-phase sword chi over 100 times. A large amount of his innate lifespan was burned, bringing about a huge surge of magical power in a short period of time, which had an impact on the entire structure of his inner mansion. For people with a shallow foundation, this kind of impact could be considered a fatal internal injury. For people with a mediocre foundation, if they used elixirs and cultivation techniques to resolve it, it could be considered a blessing in disguise, causing their cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. However, this kind of sudden increase in cultivation was only superficial. It caused a complete disconnect between their magical power and cultivation techniques, further limiting their future development. Only those cultivators with a deep foundation could truly resolve the impact and turn it into a driving force to advance their cultivation. Wang Lu's foundation was already deep enough, so it was not a problem for him to absorb the impact this time. It could even be said that for a long time, his magical power cultivation had always been his shortcoming. This time, it was truly a blessing in disguise, making up for his shortcoming. The only annoying thing was that his original plan to challenge the limit of 5th grade chi cultivating stage plus 25 defense was probably not going to be achieved. According to his master's calculations, as long as he spent a few days recuperating from his injuries and tidying up his inner mansion, his cultivation reaching the chi cultivating stage was simply a matter of time. Speaking of which, it's also a good thing to quickly advance your cultivation. In the year you were gone, the Heavenly Sword Hall held a few meetings to discuss whether or not the sex education policy for the disciples needs to be adjusted. Wang Lu was somewhat curious. What's wrong? Simply put, it's to speed up the disciples' cultivation. These years, our Lingjian school has emphasized on a solid foundation, not to advance rashly. Actually, the disciples' cultivation speed is not slow at all. Generally, in less than 10 years of cultivation, they can reach the foundation establishment stage. From the 9th grade Qi cultivating stage to the 1st grade Qi cultivating stage is very smooth, which is unimaginable in common sections. Wang Lu nodded his head in approval. Generally speaking, the higher the cultivation level, the slower the progress. The fact that the Lingjian school could guarantee a smooth progress could only mean that the sect has achieved a degree of control over the disciple's cultivation progress. In this way, the foundation of the disciple would be solid, which was not as simple as the challenge rank plus X. However, compared to the common sects, 10 years of foundation establishment is indeed fast. But who let us be one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League? According to the standard of the 5 uniques, it's a bit slow. The fastest is the Royal Soldier sect, which requires us to reach the foundation establishment stage within 3 years. That's just a madman without any reference value. However, Xingjing sect standard is 6 years, 10,000 Art sect standard is 7 years, and Kunlun Immortal sect standard is 8 years. Our Lingjian school is at the bottom. Wang Lu sneered. Originally, we're at the bottom, so what's the point of competing with those dog-rich people? His master shrugged. Previously, we indeed didn't want to compete with them. Unfortunately, someone came to find fault with us and slap our face. No matter how much our Lingjian school endure humiliation, we can't afford it. Wang Lu's interest was immediately piqued. Who came to find fault with us and slap our face? Tell me in detail. It's nothing. It's just that when the sect leader and several elders attended the Wanxian League meeting, several elders from other sects spoke sarcastically to them. They said that their own sect has successfully reached the foundation establishment stage in 3 or 4 years. Moreover, their strength is far superior to the same level genius cultivators and so on. Originally, those several people decided to drink tea and read books to kill time, but as a result, each and every one of them came back with a belly full of anger. As soon as they came back, they held a meeting to discuss the issue of education policy, which is also very funny. Wang Lu thought for a moment and then gave what he thought was a pertinent evaluation. They've eaten their fill and have nothing better to do. Who said it isn't? But later on, this matter developed faster and faster. A few days ago, the 10,000 Arts sect sent us an official letter, saying that they want to organize an exchange activity between the sect's disciples. These days, I've been caught by the sect leader to work overtime day and night for this matter. Just now, I thought you had nothing better to do than to tease me, which almost angered me to death. Wang Lu was too lazy to pay attention to his master's complaint and curiously asked, "What kind of exchange activity? Is it a blind date?" Of course, they're welcome to provide a lot of high-quality female cultivators. You think too much. That damn otaku sect has a ratio of 10 to 1, and female cultivators are even more valuable than spiritual treasures. If you want to accept male cultivators, there's still room for discussion. *T, then what are they doing here? What's there to exchange? His master sneered. What else can it be? Of course it's to fight. How to fight? Capture the flag or fight to the death. Do you want to climb the ladder to heaven? It's not that exaggerated. It's just to find a few young cultivators to represent their respective sects to fight each other on the arena like cockfighting. The one who wins can flaunt their superiority. However, this time there's a restriction, that is, their cultivation time can't exceed 10 years. Wang Lu frowned. What kind of rule is that? Do the otakus of 10,000 Arts sect like to watch children's play? There's no other way. In recent years, the focus of the development of the Wanxian League is on the younger generation of cultivators, which is roughly the cultivators who have cultivated for less than 10 years and less than 25 years old. It is said that they want to create a golden generation, to comprehensively strengthen the cultivation of this group of cultivators. Under this tone, in recent years, it's basically the young cultivators who are in the limelight. If a sect can have a genius cultivator, it's more worthy of celebration than an elder reaching deity stage. Wang Lu was pleasantly surprised. Then wouldn't I bring glory to the sect? You? His master looked at him with extreme contempt. You've cultivated for more than 5 years but still can't reach high-level Qi cultivating stage. You don't even deserve to carry the shoes of a real genius. This time, the genius cultivator that the 10,000 Arts sect is going to send is Zhan Zai. After 8 years of cultivation, he has already reached middle-level foundation establishment, which is a stage higher than you. Wang Lu simply disdained her. Now that I, your father, have a challenge rating of plus 23, killing this trash is as easy as telling dirty jokes. Not to mention that your challenge rating is just a defense rating. Why do you think that other people's challenge rating is plus 0? Could it be that it's not? Nonsense. They're not like those crazy people in the Royal Soldier sect. Nowadays, which genius cultivator from top-rank sects only wants cultivation base and not real strength? I haven't seen that Zhang Zai, but from common sense, it's not unusual for him to have a challenge rating of +7 or +8, so Wang Lu promptly made a decision. So, this sect war has nothing to do with me? As soon as he said that, he saw his master suddenly looked at him with interest. Nothing to do with you? On the contrary, it has a lot to do with you. Me? His master said and then took out a letter. This is a private letter sent along with the official letter from the 10,000 Arts sect to you. Wang Lu curiously took the letter. Sender, Hai Yun Fan. Chapter 139. Brother Wang, it has been 5 years since we parted on the Spirit Sword Mountain. How have you been? Brother Wang has always disliked unnecessary small talk, so please forgive me for getting straight to the point. 2 months later, I will go to the Spirit Sword Mountain with a group of martial brothers and sisters. This is not a good trip, nor is it my personal wish. However, this is the general trend, so I have no choice but to comply. Please forgive me, Brother Wang. The 5 people on this trip are the sect's elites. My cultivation time is the shortest, but because I was lucky enough to reach the foundation establishment stage last year, I am ranked 5th. My strength is low, so presumably I am not as good as Brother Wang. However, senior brother Zhang Zai is indeed a rare talent. When we meet in the arena 2 months later, I am afraid he will be Brother Wang's opponent. Hai Yunfan's letter was not long, but it seemed to be somewhat unpleasant. This guy has actually reached the foundation establishment stage. Based on Wang Lu's understanding of Hai Yunfan, him claiming that his strength is low was not as good as Wang Lu's, not only out of courtesy but also out of sincerity. In fact, most of the people who walked the immortal path with Wang Lu had an inferiority complex in front of Wang Lu. Unfortunately, the inferiority complex Hai Yunfan had reached the foundation establishment stage, while Wang Lu himself was still a middle-level Qi cultivating stage cultivator. Although the challenge level was very high, this was only spread among the disciples of the Lingjian school. If you mention +20 to the 10,000 Arts sect people, it would be strange if they would respond. I have the spiritual treasure sword of Mount Kuan. Aha, I have reached the foundation establishment stage. My non-phase method has an amazing defense, it can be called the #1 in the world. Aha, I have reached the foundation establishment stage. My battle record is amazing, my sword has beheaded a Shudan stage cultivator. Aha, I have reached the foundation establishment stage. I have founded the Wisdom sect with millions of followers. Aha, I have reached the foundation establishment stage. After that, it could only be F***ck your mother. I'll F***ck your whole family. Then they would roll up their sleeves and fight to the death on the arena. Therefore, even though this so-called exchange event between disciples seemed to Wang Lu to be a pain in the ass for some people who had nothing better to do, if nothing unexpected happened because of his relationship with Little Hai, especially this letter, Wang Lu would inevitably have to play a role in this event. Little Hai really came at a bad time. However, then again, the limit of this exchange was the disciples who had cultivated for less than 10 years. The trump card of the 10,000 Arts sect was Zhang Zai, who had cultivated for 8 years, while he himself had only cultivated for 5 years. Although the gap of 3 years could be big or small, in the end, it was not suitable for him to be the trump card and compete with Zhang Zai. Then, aside from me, who does the elder intend to send to deal with Zhang Zai? The first true disciple, Zhu Shiyao? Zhu Shiyao has been cultivating for 15 years. She has already crossed the line. Wang Lu was shocked. 15 years? So eldest senior sister's true appearance is that of an auntie? His master sneered. She started cultivating at the age of 4. She's now 19, not much older than you by 2 years. Moreover, in the past few years, her cultivation was mainly to consolidate the foundation, and her real cultivation was only a few years earlier than you. Strictly speaking, it can even be said that she has cultivated for less than 10 years. However, Lingjian school doesn't need to take advantage of this. The result of the discussion in the Heavenly Sword Hall is to let little Luli come forward. As long as her brain doesn't cramp, that Zhang Zai is nothing. Oh, so you're saying that I have nothing to do with it? Why not? Didn't the 10,000 Arts sect send 5 people? As the sect's successor disciple, how could you go and replace one of them? If your luck is good, you can go and get along with your Little Hai. If your luck is bad, you have to pick at least 2 of the remaining 3. Hey, our Spirit Sword sect is full of talented people. How could we not find 5 experts to receive the guests? I just can't find them. You also know that this time, the threshold is 10 years of cultivation, and within 10 years, in addition to you guys from the Immortal Gathering, Lingjian School has only accepted 4 or 5 inner court disciples. Except for Lu Li, there's no particularly outstanding talent. And in your group except for you, there's no one who can fight. All of you are just a bunch of foundation establishment cultivators, so how could you guys fight against them? Our Lingjin school is an ancient sect. We don't pursue speed. Our disciples cultivate steadily and surely, and we don't have any quality-oriented education. Our progress is slower than the other 5 uniques. Limiting the cultivation time is actually disadvantageous to us. Then why do we agree to this nonsense condition? Because this is the general practice of the Wanxian League. Moreover, it's also a relatively feasible method. Otherwise, why would they limit the height? In short, since other people have made their move, we should take it seriously. Moreover, although our Lingjin school's disciples are not that good, among the 5 people from the 10,000 Arts sect, except for Zhan Zai, they don't have any real experts. Thus we're more or less the same. While talking, the 2 of them had already returned to the non-phase peak. His master put Wang Lu and his dog at the entrance, paused, and then said, "You take a rest for a day. Tomorrow go find your 7th martial uncle to reattach your arm. After that, try to raise your cultivation level to high-level qi cultivating stage as soon as possible. After that, there's a grand program waiting for you." "What program?" his master sneered. "Of course, it's the long-awaited exchange between the disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect. Since they're so enthusiastic, we shouldn't let them down. Want to fight? Sure, but since they're here to fight, we should follow the rules of the Lingjin school. That is, my rules." Wang Lu couldn't help but smile. "Did the sect leader give you the right to organize the exchange program?" "Yes, because I've successfully organized an immortal gathering. That time, my original content was well received by the Peach Blossom Village." Wang Lu nodded. "So that's how it is. It seems like the elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall are really annoyed by this trick of the 10,000 Arts sect. If you're the one planning the event, presumably I will be the one to prepare the dinner for them." His master's expression suddenly became somewhat complicated. "Are you looking down on me?" "No, isn't there a saying on the Spirit Sword Mountain? When the guests come, there's good wine. When the jackals and wolves come, there's Wang Wu. If you and Aya were to form a group to receive the guests, they would definitely die one by one." Wang Lu was interested in ridiculing his master when he saw his master's expression suddenly become extremely strange. At the same time, a cold voice came from behind him. "Oh, thank you for thinking so highly of me." Even though he hadn't seen her for a year, this voice was still so familiar. Wang Lu coughed, turned around, and looked at the deep green eyes of the girl behind him. "Aya, what happened just now was a misunderstanding." In front of the hut on the non-phase peak, the cold atmosphere lasted for a while, and then the woman in white explained the reason with a sneer. Wang Lu's guess was right. Aya was indeed the chef of the Lingjin school's welcome dinner. Therefore, not long ago she came to the non-phase peak to discuss the menu with the chief planner, the 5th elder. Then Wang Lu's life-saving talisman was suddenly ignited, and the 5th elder had no choice but to fly to the rescue. When they returned to the mountain, the conversation just now happened. As a result, the Western chef, who had always been tranquil, was greatly angered. Her deep green eyes were still calm and serene, but her gaze was also cold. "Aya, what happened just now was just a misunderstanding. My main intention was to personally attack my master. You're lying down and getting shot, that's not my intention." The woman in white, who was personally attacked, suddenly felt that after so many years, she had taught him everything except to respect his master. Wasn't that a failure? Aya looked at Wang Lu and sighed. She was too lazy to argue with him anymore, but she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. After not seeing him for a year, Wang Lu was much stronger than before. He should have gone through a difficult experiential learning. His left hand was broken and there were some other scars on his body, but they were not ugly. And in this 1 year, Aya was not idle. After finding the right direction, her cooking skills had actually made great progress. Even though there was still a gap from the usual standard, it was much better than the initial look up at the starry sky. Unfortunately, with just a few words from Wang Lu, Aya felt that her efforts in this 1 year were somewhat in vain. Seeing that Aya's expression was not right, Wang Lu made a prompt decision and kicked the stupid dog's butt. Go and act cute." The stupid dog might not understand the meaning of the word act cute, but because of its animal instinct, it was very keenly aware of what it should do now. Therefore it wagged its tail, ran to the front of Aya, and gently rubbed her leg. The girl pursed her lips and remained motionless, trying to play the image of a cold woman. However, a trace of panic flashed through her eyes, as well as the slight trembling of her body, which couldn't be concealed. Wang Lu inwardly sneered, "Woman. Women often have no resistance to cute little animals." But what was the standard of cuteness? Perhaps there were a lot of them, but there was one that was almost universal. Stupid enough. From this point of view, the stupid dog was undoubtedly the cutest creature in the world. From its appearance, the stupid dog was also not bad. Although its fur was not pure, and it was covered with blood due to the fierce battle with the Black Poison Corps general, its pair of round eyes that were full of spirit could make up for everything. Aya just looked at the stupid dog for a moment, and she felt that her heart's defense had been further disintegrated. If it was a few years ago in the Western continent, she would never have this kind of wavering. However, after spending several years of peace on the Spirit Sword Mountain, the girl was far from that cold and unapproachable person. She helplessly leaned down and touched the stupid dog's head. A gentle breeze blew and gently wiped away the blood on the stupid dog. "It's your pet?" Aya tried to make her voice sound calmer. Wang Lu smiled. "Yes, I picked it up in the Savage Land." "Does it have a name?" "Master." Aya looked up, her eyes sharp. Quanzhou. What a strange name. You can also call it Bai. Aya gently nodded and couldn't help but touch the stupid dog. Aya suddenly opened her eyes in surprise, and then looked at Wang Lu with even more surprise. Seeing the latter's indifferent look, she slightly frowned, and her heart was full of puzzlement. However, in any case, the previous anger and resentment in her heart had dissipated under the stupid dog's cute offensive. Seeing that the situation had eased, the woman in white came forward. "Well, Wang Lu, you can rest assured. Aya and I will continue to prepare the welcome banquet. Time is very tight." With that, she pushed the Western Continent girl out of the hut. While walking, she asked, "Are you sure you don't need to prepare prostitutes for the banquet? I think those nerdy cultivators must have been looking forward to this scene for a long time." Aya didn't explain anything, she just firmly said, "No." When the two of them went far away, Wang Lu beckoned the stupid dog, which now had the name Bai, very proud of itself, to enter the hut. As Wang Wu said, he had just experienced a fight, so he really needed to rest. On the other side, in the Misty Peaks cafeteria, after a long silence, Aya finally couldn't help but ask, "Fifth Elder, aren't you surprised?" The woman in white curiously asked, "Surprised about what?" "It's Wang Lu's pet." "It's just a stupid dog?" Wang Wu casually re-examined the menu, thinking about what kind of surprise to give the 10,000 Arts Sect cultivators. Aya had to emphasize, "That's not a dog. Of course, since it was picked up in the Western Mountain, it must be a special breed of stupid dog." "What's wrong?" Seeing Aya's serious look, Wang Wu put down her work and seriously asked. Aya replied, "It's a wolf." Wolf and dog in Wang Wu's view, what was the difference? However, the other party's focus was obviously not just this. "And then?" "That's the legendary terrifying monster wolf of the Western continent, Fenrir." "What the hell?" Chapter 140. Frankly speaking, Wang Wu didn't know what the so-called terrifying monster wolf Fenrir was. However, this didn't prevent her from showing a very surprised expression, because she at least knew that the Western continent girl in front of her was by no means a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. On the contrary, she had probably seen more big scenes than most of the so-called powerful people in 9 regions. Therefore, for her to be surprised and say something like terrifying and legendary, the strength of that stupid dog must have broken through the sky. "Sister, can you tell me more about Fenrir?" Aya nodded her head. "Okay, in the northern part of Western continent, there are a lot of legends about Fenrir. I can tell you a few. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it myself, nor have I ever fought against it. I've only seen Fenrir's bones, so I can distinguish its unique smell. Hey, since it's a legendary monster wolf, it's better not to see it, right?" Aya just smiled indifferently and didn't explain. However, her petite body exuded a heroic aura, which was more powerful than any verbal explanation. "Forget it, I know you're fierce. Let's calculate it based on your experience. What's the value of this monster wolf Fenrir?" Aya was somewhat puzzled. "Value? What value?" Wang Wu explained, "It's spirit stones. For example, how many spirit stones can an adult Fenrir sell for?" Aya was suddenly stunned. After gawking for a long time, she incredulously asked, "Spirit stones? You're using spirit stones to measure the value of monster wolf Fenrir? Are you kidding me? How could a legendary monster that can destroy a city be bought with spirit stones?" Wang Wu immediately became excited. "Priceless treasure? Although I haven't seen an adult Fenrir, its strength is probably not inferior to the mythological beasts in your 9 regions. It's just that, from childhood to adulthood, it will take a very long time. However, it has many talents and abilities, and generally speaking, it has no natural enemies so. Wang Wu excitedly interrupted, no need to say more. To put it simply, it's a proper quasi-mythological beast, right? As Wang Wu spoke, she walked briskly in the kitchen, her footsteps as light as a magpie in heat. Wang Lu, that brat, is really worthy of being the son of destiny. He even picked up a quasi-divine beast after a trip to the western mountains. I'm afraid this luck is about to catch up with immortal Qin and great ancestor dishing. These goddamn void spirit roots. As Wang Wu spoke, her almond-shaped eyes shot out the fire of hatred that poor people had for the tall, rich and handsome. But it doesn't matter. Since even I don't know about this Fenrir, there is no reason for Wang Lu to know. In that case, Aya asked curiously, if that's the case? Wang Wu said sternly, I can't tolerate a pearl being covered in dust. Aya, you can study the recipe first, there's no need to play too many tricks. I still have some things to deal with in Non-Phase Peak, so I'll have to trouble you to take care of this place. Aya blankly nodded. She felt that this fifth elder seemed to be planning something without any moral integrity. Resuscitation after waking up from his coma, Wang Lu felt terrible. Previously, when he fought against the Black Poison Corps general in the Black Tide in the Savage Land, he didn't feel it at that time. But, in fact, the physical injury was quite serious. The impact of burning his innate lifespan on his inner mansion was secondary. After running and breathing in the Black Tide for a long time, his internal organs were corroded. Fortunately, his non-phase method gave him a tough body which allowed him to persist. Back at the non-phase peak, once his fighting spirit relaxed, his injury would gradually rise. Although it would not be fatal, it would inevitably be uncomfortable for a period of 1 or 2 days. Wang Lu went back to his room to sleep for 2 or 3 hours. Outside the house, the sun was already setting. The blood-red setting sun reflected on his face, which made him feel that the taste of blood in his mouth was a bit heavier, internal injury. With a dry mouth and tongue, Wang Lu reluctantly got up and wanted to find a cup of tea to drink. As a result, as soon as he sat up, he saw a cup of fragrant tea in front of him and a soft voice in his ears. You're up, would you like a cup of tea? Wang Lu frowned and froze for a moment. He looked at the teacup in front of him, and then looked at the gentle and chuckling woman in white beside him. He picked up the teacup, drank it in one gulp, and then returned the teacup to the woman's hand. Taking advantage of the fact that she was unprepared, he directly reached out to touch the other party's plump chest. And then it hit the target. Felt good. Wang Lu retracted his hand. Seeing that the other party didn't respond at all, he took a long breath. Phew, it seems like it's true. TSK, unaccountably solicitous, what are you going to do? The woman in white calmly took back the teacup and then said with a grin, I just poured you a cup of tea out of Master's care for her disciple, and by the way, care about your situation. Wang Lu said, it's bad but it's getting better. At present, Master doesn't need to waste your time and energy to take care of me. No, this is a must. As my non-phase peak successor disciple, you and I are as close as mother and son. Wait a minute, stop, I will never admit that you're my mother. Oh, then let's be as close as brother and sister, as close as brother and sister. If that doesn't work, then let's be as close as husband and wife. Who let me be your master? As a master, I have to play various roles when needed. Your Taoist temple is really hopeless. In short, you just need to understand that I care about you right now. Oh. Then, out of concern, I think you should concentrate on recuperating, and then take this opportunity to improve your cultivation as soon as possible. This is a rare opportunity if you can grasp it. Stop, Master, if you have something to say, just say it. With our IQ, there's no need to beat around the bush, I'm straight. Okay. The woman in white was obviously disappointed, because the script that she had painstakingly prepared didn't seem to play any role. Were hot-blooded teachers not popular these days? I want your dog. Wang Lu nodded his head. No way. The woman in white froze for a moment and then said with a smile, maybe I didn't make it clear. I want the stupid dog that you picked up from the Western Mountain. You also gave it the name Quanzhou Hua. To be honest, I think this name seems to be a copyright infringement, but since you like it, then forget it. After such a long series of sincere explanations, Wang Lu responded with an equally sincere smile, no wait. Hey, it's just a dog. Just a dog? Do you think I'm stupid? If it's just an ordinary dog, do you need to bring me tea and touch my chest? Wang Lu sneered and then roared, Hua, come in. No response. Stupid dog, come in. So the stupid dog came bounding in from outside the room, with a retarded smile on his face like a hydrocephalus. However, 2 or 3 hours ago, it and Wang Lu were both seriously injured, But at this time Wang Lu was still recovering from his injury, while this stupid dog seemed to be fine, even its broken teeth had grown back. "Tell me, what kind of dog are you?" The stupid dog tilted its head and looked at its master in confusion. "Your breed, type, race, whatever you want to understand, what are you?" The stupid dog froze for a moment, then smiled and said, "Hey, you ask this, I'm Fenrir." At the same time, the woman in white sighed, covered her face and said nothing. She wanted to cry but had no tears. Wang Lu looked at his master with great interest, and continued to ask the stupid dog, "What is Fenrir?" The stupid dog was stunned. "How would I know?" "Damn, you're really hopeless." Wang Lu has already given the stupid dog a diagnosis, but at the same time he began to hesitate. This guy is so stupid, maybe he should give it to his master in exchange for a favor? However, at this time, the woman in white could no longer bear the humiliation. She shook her head, got up and left, comforting herself in her heart. This Fenrir's brain was obviously damaged, and the damage was not light. This kind of defective quasi-mythological beast was still in its infancy, so its value was actually greatly reduced. Because it was hard to say when this stupid dog would die because of its stupidity. That being the case, she would let Wang Lu, this idiot, depend on it. As the dignified #1 king pill in 9 regions, she would not associate with a stupid dog. A few days later, Wang Lu's injury was completely healed. Moreover, his cultivation base had greatly advanced, directly stepping into the high-level qi cultivating stage. However, he was still not satisfied. On the road to high-level qi cultivating stage, he advanced by leaps and bounds. According to Wang Lu's own speculation, if he could advance for 3 to 5 days, he might be able to reach the peak of qi cultivating stage and prepare to enter the foundation establishment stage. Unfortunately, there was no such thing as a free lunch. In the past few days, his cultivation base had skyrocketed. It could be said that he had paid the previous years of accumulation in one go, and even added the heaven-burning blood technique as a driving force. If he wanted to continue to advance by leaps and bounds, he would have to take pills or refine a few monsters, cultivators and so on. However, his current cultivation base was just right. High-level qi cultivating stage was almost the top cultivator in the same batch. Although in the past few years there were a few new stars in the inner court, and their cultivation base was almost at the high-level qi cultivating stage, but according to the 9 levels, it was still a lot worse. Moreover, Wang Lu's challenge level, defense, was incomparably high. Right now, on the surface he was at the 2nd level qi cultivating stage plus 23. However, if he really used all his means such as the innate non-phase sword qi, the low-level Shudan stage Xiaoming simply couldn't break his defense. To be able to challenge someone with a higher level to this extent was simply appalling. Generally, in the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, if a cultivator's challenge level could reach plus 5, then they would be considered as a genius. If it was plus 8, then it would be considered as an amazing genius. For example, Shengjing Sect's Zhonghua and Lingjian School's Lu Li, who belonged to the category of peerless geniuses that only appeared once in many years, were only around plus 15. If Wang Lu's challenge level of plus 23 was thrown out, perhaps it would not be inferior to Lu Li's slaying of the 12 blood cloud demons. However, no matter what, Wang Lu himself had no intention to be greedy for the vanity. Right now, there was only one thing that he wanted to do. To participate in the series of activities that Lingjian School prepared for the exchange team of the 10,000 Arts sect. The main planner of this activity was the 5th elder of the Heavenly Sword Hall. Thus, as the 5th elder's successor disciple, and also the only person in the Spirit Sword Mountain who had a similar thinking pattern as the 5th elder, his assistant's work was duty-bound. For a professional adventurer, personally playing the game was already outdated. The highest realm of an adventurer was to play the chess pieces with the height of a chess player. Fellow Taoists of the 10,000 Arts sect, welcome. Chapter 141. Spirit Sword Mountain Non-Phase Peak. In a small wooden house facing the scarlet sunset, a plot was brewing. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will not be shot in 100 battles. Master, what's the general situation of the 10,000 Arts sect? At the dining table, Wang Lu held a writing brush in his mouth, looking pensive. Upon hearing his question, his master, who was sitting on the other side, replied without looking up. Don't you know? They're just a group of otakus who think their IQ is higher than others. Tell me in detail? His master humphed. I don't have time. Are you busy flirting? At this time, sitting between the two of them, a tall elder helplessly shook his head. Senior sister Wang Lu, don't quarrel with each other. Since this elder had spoken, although the master and disciple were obviously still dissatisfied, they no longer said anything. After all, in the entire Spirit Sword Mountain, there were only a few people who didn't give face to the seventh elder Ao Guanhai. Not to mention that at this time, the Black Elder was actively pulled by the master and disciple to be a coolie. Under the command of the two of them, he was a superior labor force, so his words always carried weight. Seeing that the two of them were no longer in a tit-for-tat, Ao Guanhai said to Wang Lu with a smile, "I know something about the 10,000 Arts sect. How to say it, the characteristics of the 10,000 Arts sect can be seen from the name. In the Union of 10,000 Immortals Method Museum, no matter how rare the method is, it can basically be found in the 10,000 Arts sect. Have you ever thought about where their method came from? They are not the same as Kunlun Immortal sect, they don't have a long history, and they don't have a decent inheritance." Wang Lu thought for a moment. Well, it's not by inheritance and most likely not by robbery. Even the most overbearing royal soldier sect can't become a museum of immortal cultivation, so it's even more impossible for the 10,000 Arts sect to become rich by robbery. Also, it shouldn't be by buying because even the richest Xingjing sect can't buy the museum of immortal cultivation, so it's self-developed? Ao Guanhai said, "You can also say that. Although most of the methods collected by the 10,000 Arts sect are obtained through transactions, these transactions are facilitated by the independent research and development ability of the 10,000 Arts sect. Previously, it wasn't that they couldn't trade with the opposite party. The opposite party treasured the technique and refused to hand over the middle-rank cultivation method. The people of 10,000 Arts sect tried to negotiate with them, so in a fit of anger, they directly gathered several Yuanying stage elders and blocked the opposite side's mountain gate. After a day and a night, they reverse-engineered the cultivation method on the spot. At that time, the sect leader of that sect was so angry that he vomited blood. Since then, for the transaction proposed by the 10,000 Arts sect, as long as it wasn't too unreasonable or involved too much of a core secret, generally, as long as the 10,000 Arts sect promised to keep it confidential, they wouldn't refuse. Moreover, they would often be able to exchange for a very affordable method. In this way, the collection of the 10,000 Arts sect became more and more abundant, which eventually earned the title of Wanxian League Method Museum. However, in the final analysis, this title is all thanks to the frightening independent research and development ability of the 10,000 Arts sect. Wang Lu hadn't heard of this story before. At this time he couldn't help but nod and said, "That group of nerds in 10,000 Arts sect think highly of themselves, but it's also reasonable." Ao Guanhai said, "Of course it's reasonable. The 10,000 Arts sect has the most perfect and advanced method research mechanism in the immortal cultivation world, the largest research team, and the craziest research investment. The most important requirement for their disciples is that they must have a high perception. Even if their cultivation base is insufficient, as long as they can see it, they can at least become a researcher after entering the sect. As long as their research ability is enough, then their treatment is no different from that of a genius in immortal cultivation. They firmly believe that only this kind of unremitting research can truly promote the progress of the immortal cultivation world. However, because of this persistence and belief, they despise the other sections. Even the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League are no exception." Wang Wu said, "Shengjing sect is a nouveau riche, Kunlun Immortal sect is an antique, Royal Soldier sect is a barbarian guerrilla, and Spirit Sword sect, needless to say, you know what I mean. So conversely, what about the reputation of the 10,000 Arts sect in the immortal cultivation world?" Ao Guanhai wryly smiled. "If we only consider their ability to promote the method in the immortal cultivation world, then naturally they should be highly respected. Even I admire them. However, the arrogant attitude of the 10,000 Arts sect, as well as their inexperienced way of dealing with people, have really brought them a lot of enemies." At this time, the woman in white's sneering laughter came. "You can just say that they're a group of unwelcome otaku geeks. Very well, I've already designed the plan for the day's welcome ceremony, you guys can take a look." Wang Lu reached out his master's plan to review it, and then repeatedly clicked his tongue. Since you know what kind of people the 10,000 Arts sect is, your plan really knows how to attack the key points. However, it's best to enrich the details a bit more." The woman in white didn't take it seriously. "You can change it yourself, I don't care about this part. After the welcome ceremony is the high-level meeting. There's not much room to play in this part, but at the banquet we can arrange a lot of drama." While revising his master's plan, Wang Lu casually said, "Banquet? Add a program to liven things up. Aren't they here to compete? The element of competition starts from the banquet." Wang Wu sneered. Okay, but since the other party is new, let's start with something simple. Les senior brother says that I'm too much of a bully. Jiske, the old sect leader, gave this task to us. It's clear that he wants us to bully people. It's already polite enough that he didn't arrange to add feces and urine to their dinner. Oh, that makes sense, we can add feces and urine, that's a good idea. Hey, do you really want to add it? Hee, in any case, if there's a problem, I'll say that it's your idea. *CK. The master and disciple chatted casually, constantly perfecting the various sets of procedures for the exchange activities, and all kinds of vicious ideas gushed out under the collision of the two extraordinary wisdom. The seventh elder Ao Guanhai listened on the side, feeling cold sweat running down his back, but also very gratified. Because fifth senior sister really hadn't been so happy for many years. Although her expression didn't change and she was even more angry when quarreling with Wang Lu, in fact, she was very happy. For so many years, no one could have such a tacit understanding with her. Even he, who had the best relationship with her in the Heavenly Sword Hall, couldn't really understand many of senior sister's thoughts. Eldest senior brother had complicated feelings for fifth senior sister, but he usually only tolerated her whimsical ideas but didn't understand. Only this Wang Lu. The two were like carved from the same mold. If he didn't have enough understanding of fifth senior sister, Ao Guanhai would even suspect that this child might be fifth senior sister's illegitimate child. Perhaps it was fate bestowed upon them by the heavens for them to be together. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Lingjian School attached great importance to the exchange activities and organized a training activity. All the inner and outer disciples who had cultivated on the mountain for less than 10 years participated. The 4 elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall and many senior disciples with cultivation of King Pill accompanied them throughout the whole process. The results of the training were very remarkable. This was also a matter of course. For this exchange activity, Lingjian School really put in the capital. Not only did several elders sacrifice 2 months of precious cultivation time, but the sect also opened the spiritual vein for the disciples and built a cultivation cave with extremely rich and inexhaustible spiritual energy. The 7th elder Ao Guanhai personally collected a large number of rare elixirs from the Blue Cloud Peak to refine elixirs for the disciples. The cultivation of Lingjian School had always been stable, but this didn't mean that the people of Lingjian School weren't good at sudden attacks. After 2 months of training, the cultivation of the inner and outer court disciples soared. The worst among them advanced by 1 level, and the best among them advanced by 3 levels, directly reaching the high-level qi cultivating stage. Of course, this kind of rapid progress in a short period of time would inevitably lead to the instability of the foundation. However, this kind of unstable foundation was only compared to the cultivators of Spirit Sword sect under normal circumstances. With the profound accumulation of the Spirit Sword sect disciples, it was not to the point where they couldn't control their magical power. Moreover, in the course of the training, the instructors also strengthened the disciples' adaptability to the sudden surge of magical power. In short, this was a practical and effective training, which allowed the comprehensive strength of these disciples who had cultivated for less than 10 years to soar. As for whether they could deal with the 10,000 Arts sect who came to challenge them, at least, the disciples of Lingjian School were already complacent, waiting for the other party to come at them. Haha, my divine skill has been completed, now I'm invincible. High-level qi cultivating stage, I already have the cultivation of high-level qi cultivating stage. A mere 10,000 Arts sect is destined to be trampled under my feet. Hey, the worst among the people of the 10,000 Arts sect is still low-level foundation establishment. How could you, a group of high-level qi cultivating stage, be so confident? This is a spiritual atomic bomb you don't understand. In any case, for a time, the fighting spirit of the Spirit Sword sect has been stirred up. For the elders, these 2 months were not easy. Suddenly changing the cultivation process of the disciples, taking into account the skyrocketing cultivation as well as the follow-up cultivation, not to hinder the long-term development of the disciples because of this exchange activity, was not a small problem for the elders. In particular, the 7th elder Ao Guanhai, on one hand, had to assist the master and disciple of the non-phase peak. On the other hand, he also had to constantly refine elixirs for the disciples to take. 2 months later, even the elders began to look forward to the arrival of the 10,000 Arts sect. If you don't come, how can we endure these 2 months of hard work? Of course, this was even more so for the master and disciple of the non-phase peak who had been busy with the planning and organization work for the past 2 months. They had prepared 18 kinds of programs, only waiting for the main character to appear. A few days later, in the expectation of the Lingjian School, the cultivators of the 10,000 Arts sect finally arrived. Early in the morning, a golden cloud came from the east. That cloud's back was against the sun, yet surrounded by the sun, it proudly released its own dazzling brilliance. 10,000 Arts Sect Cloud Wave Boat. Chapter 142. The golden cloud silently approached the Spirit Sword Mountain. A moment later, the protective cloud array suddenly dispersed, revealing a spacious path and the true appearance of the mountain. At the other end of the path was the Spirit Sword Mountain's 4 divisions peak. At the peak, almost all of the high-level members of the Lingjian school had arrived. On the cloud wave boat, several white-robed cultivators looked at each other with a hint of ridicule in their eyes. This Spirit Sword sect is quite tactful, their performance is quite respectful. Humph, they're just the last of the 5 uniques, what qualifications do they have to be disrespectful? Really, is it necessary for the sect leader to send us to this remote place? Look at this mountain's protective array, it actually uses the design concept from hundreds of years ago. Tieske, I feel like the spiritual energy here has a rustic taste which will affect the acuity of thinking. The sect leader said to let the disciples of the 2 sects take this opportunity to have an exchange. Is there any need for an exchange? I heard that within 10 years of cultivation, only one of them has successfully reached the foundation establishment stage, while the others are at most high-level chi cultivating stage. This group of barbarians can't even do the basic cultivation, they're simply useless. Rather than an exchange, it's more like a one-sided performance, so we should charge them a performance fee. Senior brothers, I think, since the other party is also one of the 5 uniques, we shouldn't be too careless. Humph, Yunfan, you're delusional. As one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League? How could we, the cultivators of 9 regions and those despicable sects, be compared to them? Let alone the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League is just their own statement. I don't think those nouveau riche and antiques are qualified to be compared to our 10,000 Arts sect. The reason why humans are the spirit of all living things is that we know how to use our wisdom better than any other creature. That's enough. While the several young white-robed cultivators were happily chatting, a middle-aged cultivator standing at the front of the cloud wave boat raised his hand and stopped his disciples from chatting. However, on his face, there was also a trace of contempt smile. We're almost there. Some words can be thought in your heart and there's no need to say them out loud. After all, we're on their home ground. It's said that the head of Lingjian school, Feng Yin Taoist master, is a Huashan cultivator, and he's not weaker than me. Don't underestimate him too much. Behind the middle-aged cultivator, a young disciple was overjoyed. Can these barbarians do it? Their leader is only at the soul formation stage. This Lingjian school is too funny. Another disciple laughed and said, "Ha, third senior brother, I think there's something good about this sect." What's in it? There are so many female disciples. Look, there are 6 or 7 female disciples on the 4 divisions peak alone. Moreover, all of them are quite good-looking. Fourth junior brother is right. This Lingjian school doesn't have any other strong points, but the quality of its female disciples is really good. When the time comes, as long as we show off our talent to these young girls who have never seen the world, it's very possible to leave behind a romantic encounter in this Blue River province. The 2 young male disciples were beaming with joy when they heard a cold snort from behind them, causing their hair to stand on end. Second senior sister, a young girl who was also wearing a white robe walked to the front of the cloud wave boat with a displeased expression and snorted coldly. You speak so enthusiastically. When those women really come, which one of you can talk to them without batting an eyelid? Third junior brother was obviously unconvinced. What's so difficult about saying a few words? Really? Then turn around and say a few words to me. Third junior brother forcefully turned his head and said in a heroic manner, "Come on, say what you want to say." Second senior sister sighed helplessly. Open your eyes first, then use this kind of heroic tone to speak more persuasively. Alright, go down and wake eldest senior brother up. We're almost there. Oh, okay. As they spoke, the golden cloud wave boat had already descended above the 4 divisions peak and began to slowly descend. On the other side, on the 4 divisions peak, many elders and senior disciples of the Lingjian school, as well as disciples who had been cultivating for less than 10 years, had all arrived. Feng Yin, Lucian, Fang He, Zhouming, Lu Liao, Guanhai, Huayun. Almost all the Heavenly Sword Hall elders had arrived. With Feng Yin as the center, they stood in a row, their posture meticulous. This had nothing to do with the seating of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League. It was merely out of courtesy. The 10,000 Arts sect could be rude, but the Lingjian school couldn't lose self-discipline because of this. However, only the elders standing in the front had a sense of self-discipline. The disciples in the back inevitably felt indignant and whispered to each other. What's so great about that? This high and mighty posture is like the arrival of a true immortal. Moreover, it said that there are only a few people, yet they actually drove such a big cloud wave boat. Are they trying to show off their wealth? When the real competition comes, I'll definitely teach them a lesson. Oh, by the way, where are the fifth elder and senior brother Wang Lu? They should be attending this competition, but I don't see them. Because they're worried that their appearance would bring shame to the Lingjian school. While the two outer court disciples were discussing in a low voice, one of them suddenly felt a hand on his shoulder. Tell me who's worried about bringing shame to the Lingjian school. That outer court disciple hastily turned his head. When he saw the person behind him, his face immediately turned pale. Senior brother Wang Lu, I was just... Wang Lu didn't care about that discussion at all. He just smiled and said, stand properly, prepare to watch a good show later. With that, he walked past the disciple and stood behind the elders in the line of successor disciples. The so-called line was actually only him and Lu Li. Because senior sister Zhu Shiyao had been cultivating for more than 10 years, she didn't show up. At this time the cloud wave boat finally stopped. 8 golden lights descended from the clouds. 3 10,000 art sect elders took the lead, followed by 5 disciples. These 8 cultivators stepped on the golden lights, and their backs were against the clouds. They looked like true immortals descending to earth, or like emperors on a tour of the lower realm. Their imposing manner was majestic and dazzling. It was just that, when the golden lights descended, they were as slow as a crawling snail. The cultivators of Spirit Sword sect below naturally saw that they were putting on airs. Moreover, they were putting on airs in front of their faces. The several elders looked at them with a straight face, but the disciples behind them couldn't stand still. Damn, they're too arrogant. Are these 10,000 art sect people here for an exchange or to pick a fight? Let the uncles open the mountain protection array and wrap them up like dumplings. While the several outer court disciples were talking, a certain successor disciple nodded and interjected. That's right, later on, as long as they claimed that it was an attack by a terrorist organization, the Lingjian school would express its strong condemnation and deep condolences. As soon as his voice fell, the third elder, who stood at the front, slightly turned his head, which immediately silenced the outer court disciples while Wang Lu sincerely smiled. He sighed and no longer paid attention to him. The 10,000 art sect's overbearing behavior was indeed hateful, but the sect leader had handed over the reception work to his 5th junior sister and Wang Lu, which could be considered as a wicked person being tortured by another wicked person. As an elder of the Heavenly Sword Hall, he had already informed them in advance, which was really impossible to comment on. However, the cultivators of 10,000 art sect in midair naturally didn't let go of the Spirit Sword sect's cultivators' discussion and petty actions. 2 young cultivators couldn't help but sneer. With this kind of shrewdness, what kind of immortal cultivation is this? Barbarians of the Blue River region? Hey, 4th junior brother, look, that girl has a good figure. Sure enough, it's a murder weapon, the 4th junior brother said and then quickly wiped the corner of his mouth. I think it's at least D cup. Great minds think alike. You too, a certain senior sister helplessly sighed, but inwardly she remembered the information that she had read before coming here. That hot girl was standing behind the elder of the Lingjian school, presumably she should be the successor disciple, Zhu Shiyao or Lu Li. The latter was more likely. It was said that 2 years ago in the Blood Cloud Gorge, she had beheaded 12 Shudan and quasi-Shudan evildoers. Although she was a barbarian, she was an outstanding barbarian. This time, the one that the Lingjian school sent to contend against senior brother Zhan Zai was probably her. However, if she wanted to fight against her senior brother, she had to at least pass through her first. As a female cultivator, Yi Feifei didn't think that she would lose to a barbarian woman from the Blue River region. Although her spirit root aptitude was not the best, she came from the 10,000 art sect and received the most advanced education in the 9 regions. In this regard, even those cultivators with heavenly spirit root could not be compared to her. A mere 12 Shudan and quasi-Shudan, could she not do it? Perhaps she could even do it more beautifully. However, no matter how well she did, compared to senior brother Zhan Zai, it was still insignificant. Senior brother is the real genius. Yi Feifei inwardly thought and then looked at her eldest brother with reverence. However, she saw that her eldest brother was also staring at Lu Li, frowning and mumbling something. Hello, my name is Jean Zai, 19 years old, middle-level foundation establishment, single, hope to be friends with you. Hello, my name is Jean Zai, hope to be friends with you. Hello, beauty, I am the eldest brother of the younger generation of the 10,000 Arts sect, Jean Zai. Yi Feifei was dumbfounded, thinking, the eldest brother, you? The elders who led the team in front of them were also helpless. The ratio of men to women in the 10,000 Arts sect was too uncoordinated. Moreover, they didn't have a good relationship with several well-known female cultivator sections. Thus, the disciples didn't have experience in this area, so they were helpless. However, this was not a big deal. The disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect were all talented people with high IQ, so they should understand how powerless this kind of love affair was in front of the immortal path. As long as they held the heart to pursue the immortal path, everything in the world of sensual pleasures was just a fleeting cloud. This time they would show these country bumpkins of the Blue River region how powerful the 10,000 Arts sect was. Moreover, the Lingjian school was just the first stop of the 10,000 Arts sect. Finally, the 8 golden lights fell to the ground. However, just as these 8 people stood firm, they heard the voice of a cultivator in red and white dress opposite them. Music. As soon as his voice fell, a deafening sound of bamboo flute and harp resounded on the 4 divisions peak. This music came so suddenly that the 8 people of the 10,000 Arts sect were somewhat caught off guard. They were startled and looked around for a while, thinking that the Spirit Sword Mountain had activated its mountain protecting array to wrap them up like dumplings. After a while, they realized that this was probably the welcome ceremony of the Lingjian school. They suddenly became angry out of shame. Being startled by the other party's music was really a loss of face. This music from the Lingjian school was most likely intentional. However, soon, the cultivator in red and white dress who stood behind the elder of the Lingjian school once again opened his mouth. Girls, it's time to enter the stage. The next moment, the surrounding platform of the 4 divisions peak was filled with the sound of orioles and swallows. More than 100 young and beautiful women entered the stage in a line, surrounding the 8 people of the 10,000 Arts sect. Some of these women were tall and slender, some were petite and exquisite, some were voluptuous and some were bony and attractive. The older ones seemed to be less than 30 years old, exuding the charm of a mature woman. Most of them were 16 or 17 years old, the time when young girls were full of vitality. There were also some who were only 13 or 14 years old, still childish, but also delicate and beautiful. The women wore special dresses. Although they didn't expose much, the fabric was close-fitting, which perfectly outlined the curve of their figure. At the same time, there were also some who wore more eye-catching short skirts, which revealed a pair of snow-white soft thighs, full of temptation. These women surrounded the 8 people of the 10,000 Arts sect and could not help but softly laugh. Welcome to the Spirit Sword Mountain, Senior Immortal of the 10,000 Arts sect. Welcome to the Spirit Sword Mountain, Senior Immortal, you're so handsome. Senior Immortal, could you please give me an autograph? Just sign it here. A woman in thin clothes puffed out her chest. For a time, on the 4 divisions peak except for a few insiders, everyone else was dumbfounded as if they were petrified. A moment later, the 8 people of the 10,000 Arts sect were like ants in a steamer, anxiously at a loss as to what to do. Especially the several young cultivators, their faces were flushed, their eyes wandered, and their minds were in chaos. A certain Spirit Sword sect inner court disciple stammered and asked, Senior Brother Wang Lu, this is a show, girl, that is, a show of cleavage. Wang Lu sneered and then loudly said, Girls, show your cleavage. Good. The dozen or so women in the front suddenly opened their clothes, revealing their close-fitting clothes and a large area of their snow-white skin. The 10,000 Arts sect's 3rd junior brother couldn't help but spurt out a nosebleed. The nearby 4th junior brother was also choked by his own saliva, coughing non-stop. A dignified foundation establishment cultivator being choked by saliva could be considered as news. Handsome guy, what's your name? My name is Jean Zai, Wow, what a cool name. I know you're awesome. Hee, middle-level foundation establishment, not worth mentioning. Wow, middle-level foundation establishment. So awesome. You don't look that old. I'm 19 years old this year, single. Amidst the chaos they heard a cold humph. Humph, dirty trick. Cool breeze, break the illusion. An elder of the 10,000 Arts sect made a hand seal, summoning a cool breeze to blow over the peak. It was the break the illusion wind that specialized in breaking all kinds of illusions. With the means of the 10,000 Arts sect, in the face of this break the illusion wind, perhaps only a few of them could maintain their illusion. However, when the cool breeze blew, the tender voice was still there. That elder froze for a long time, thinking, "This is impossible. What kind of illusion is this?" Just then 2 plump women came up to him. "Elder Immortal, what kind of immortal technique did you just use? Call the wind and summon the rain, it's so powerful." "Elder Immortal, please teach me how to cast this technique, I also want to learn immortal technique." While saying that, they rubbed their plump breasts against the elder's arms and chest. Before long, the elder's face turned red and he was embarrassed. You're all illusions, you can't scare me. Look at me, look at my Break the Illusion Heart Sutra." However, the elder of the 10,000 Arts sect was more steady. When the Break the Illusion wind blew, he knew that these women were not illusions. In other words, "What the Lingjian school, do you guys have any lower limit? You actually found a real person to perform this obscene act? Humph, unfortunately, you want to use this kind of evil insignificant skill to deal with the cultivators of my 10,000 Arts sect? Calm the heart, expel the evil, clear and pure Zen light." The middle-aged elder raised his index finger, and his fingertip blossomed with a whitish golden brilliance. Wherever the light passed, the evil thoughts would be eliminated, and the people's heart would calm down. This was actually a method used by the Zen school to calm people's heart. Although it was just an insignificant skill, when used by a deity stage elder, it was enough to instantly kill a raging devil, and make millions of sinners repent. "You group of perverted women, repent for me." However, after this clear and pure Zen light, the women around him were only slightly stunned. Not only did they not kneel down to repent, but they even more enthusiastically approached him. "Elder Immortal is so handsome. Excuse me, can I lick your finger? Elder Immortal, I want to give you a baby." This deity stage elder also had the urge to vomit blood. The clear and pure Zen light was actually ineffective. Did this group of women not have any dirty thoughts in their hearts? Then what were they doing now? Supporting their husband and educating their children? Similarly, many people in the Lingjian school were also puzzled. Even the elders in the Heavenly Sword Hall who knew the arrangement in advance were also curious about where these women came from. They were passionate, sincere, and had a simple temperament, absolutely not a perverted person. However, their speech and demeanor were somewhat similar to that of a brothel girl. Previously, when the 5th elder and Wang Lu proposed this plan, the elders also questioned what they would do if they were to be broken by the opposite party's spell. Then they heard Wang Lu's solemn vow that unless the 10,000 Arts sect lost their righteous reputation and killed a group of innocent women, otherwise, there was nothing to worry about. In fact, the most likely choice of the 10,000 Arts sect was nothing more than to break the illusion, exorcise the evil and so on, which were not so fierce. In view of this, they could completely find the right candidate. Regarding the doubts of the elders at this time, Wang Lu finally gave the answer. They are the followers of the Wisdom sect. In recent years, my great Wisdom sect has been propagating the doctrine, exhorting people to do good and to deliver all living beings from suffering. 3 years ago, these women were the master plucking tonics on the charming Fox Mountain. After my Wisdom sect's expansion, they were destroyed. No, after the baptism of my Wisdom sect's doctrine, now they are glorious followers. Their mind is absolutely pure, their character is absolutely open, their faith is absolutely firm, and their appearance is absolutely good. Moreover, basically each of them has a cultivation base, they are the real immortal cultivators. Otherwise, with the aloof attitude of the 10,000 Arts sect, I'm afraid they wouldn't treat mortals as human beings. After saying that, Wang Lu sighed as if he was lonely at the top. For this group of dead otaku, the stimulation seems to be a bit too much, ha ha ha. However, at this time, someone from the 10,000 Arts sect finally assumed the role of stabilizing the situation. She was only a low-level foundation establishment cultivator, yet she ignored the changes around her. She let out a long sigh. What are you guys doing? The sea is turning into mulberry fields, the flourishing has fallen. A ripple spread out. It was fine for the elders, but for the young disciples, the scenery around them changed. Those tender and alluring beauties withered in front of their eyes. In the blink of an eye, they turned into pink skeletons in the yellow sand, which looked horrifying. Yi Feifei was really helpless towards her sect elders and her senior and junior brothers. How could they be so bewildered in such a small scene? Indeed, for these enthusiastic women, they couldn't be pushed away or shielded, because that would make the 10,000 Arts sect appear as unstylish as the barbarian guerrillas of the Royal Soldier sect. However, was it really difficult to create an illusion of a beautiful skeleton? How could anyone think of it? Sure enough, as soon as this flourishing spell came out, the disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect were stunned, seemingly calming down from their fanaticism. However, to some extent, Yi Feifei really underestimated the adaptability of the cultivators of Spirit Sword sect, and even more underestimated the lower limit of her own people. Just as the cultivators of the 10,000 Arts sect were about to regain their composure, one of them shouted, "Damn, so what if they're pink skeletons? No matter what, they're still living women." Several disciples were startled. "Yes, that's right." That person shouted again, "Science must see the truth from the fog. Observe things with your heart instead of your eyes. Behind these pink skeletons, there are thousands of charming beauties." Yes, that's right. They look like skeletons, but they're actually beauties. Someone continued to shout, "Moreover, so what if they're pink skeletons? You guys have been doing research on the mountain for so many years, let alone women, you haven't even seen many pink skeletons, right?" "That's true. So I know that mere pink skeletons absolutely can't stop you." "Yes. Mere pink skeletons, that's all." A deeply bewitched disciple finally couldn't bear it anymore. In a moment of heat, he suddenly hugged a little skeleton in front of him and kissed it. The 4 divisions peak was deathly silent. Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders. "Don't look at me, I'm only responsible for inciting them. The ones who do this are their people." An inner court disciple couldn't help but say, but, senior brother, how could you bring such a small child here to show off her cleavage?" Wang Lu took a look and saw that the one that was hugged by a certain 10,000 Arts sect disciple was a little more than 10 years old little girl, who was laughing and rubbing herself against that cultivator's bosom. Wang Lu lightly said, "To seduce a dead otaku, of course, I have to find a little lowly." Chapter 143. The disturbance on the 4 divisions peak eventually subsided. At first, the 10,000 Arts sect was caught off guard, but soon, under the roar of the elders, they recovered their composure. However, in the end they were left in a sorry state. The people of the 10,000 Arts sect haven't recovered for a long time. Originally, they planned to give the opposite party a show of strength when they first met, but as a result, they were the ones who were taken down first. Their whole body was covered with mud. What was even more hateful was that, for the time being, they could only swallow their anger. Because, in detail, what did the Lingjian school do wrong? Was it wrong to find a group of young, simple and innocent female cultivators to warmly welcome them? Probably, countless sects would shout, "Please don't make a mistake on me," and in the process they used the breaking illusion wind, clear Zen light and flourishing fall. Did the opposite party have any malicious intention to stop them? Nothing at all. In the final analysis, it was the 10,000 Arts sect's own fault. If they knew this earlier, they would have used their immortal technique to shield them, so that their disciples would turn a blind eye to these girls. This was not only polite, but also did not cause them to lose face. Unfortunately, even the 3 elders who were leading the group did not expect that the situation would become so bad. They did not expect that a mere few women would be able to make the genius disciples of their sect at a loss. Whenever he thought of this, Yuan Chaoyan couldn't help but inwardly sigh. As the leading elder, he undoubtedly had to bear the main responsibility for this kind of mistake, because it wasn't without precedent. There was once a predecessor of the 10,000 Arts sect who experienced a similar trauma. It was more than 200 years ago. When Yuan Chaoyan had just condensed the king pill, one of his martial uncles failed to woo a fairy from Kunlun immortal sect. Due to the entanglement of the inner demon, his cultivation was almost crippled. Later on, the sect elders invited dozens of professionals from the Yin and Yang school to treat him for 10 days. After 10 days, the trauma in his heart was healed and he lived a loving and harmonious life with his junior brother. Perhaps when he returned to the mountain, he should also treat Zhan Zai and the others. Or should he simply popularize this treatment program? In any case, after experiencing this unique welcoming ceremony, the condescending imposing manner of the 10,000 Arts sect toward the Spirit Sword sect has been reduced by a lot. After that, they exchanged greetings with the elders and disciples of the Spirit Sword sect, and so on. Everything was done in an orderly and calm manner. After leaving the 4 divisions peak, Lingjian school was accompanied by the 2nd and 9th elders. They temporarily settled down in the pink building of the Spirit Pool Peak. After a simple rest, they were accompanied by the 2 elders to visit several places of the Spirit Sword Mountain to show their hospitality, as well as to eliminate the embarrassment in the morning. The first sect, 10 sect and 10 sect, 1004 sect and sect, 1000 sect and the location of the banquet was set in the cafeteria of the Misty Peak. After Aya's careful arrangement, The decoration of the cafeteria took into account the styles of the two different civilizations of the 9 regions and the Western continent, which was refreshing. The accompanying disciples of the Spirit Sword sect repeatedly praised this, but the disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect put on a dismissive attitude. Of course, no matter what they saw, they were disdainful. The 10,000 Arts sect cultivators soon took their seats one by one. The 3 elders and the Heavenly Sword Hall elders of the Lingjian school sat at the main table in the middle of the cafeteria. Zhan Zai and the other disciples, accompanied by Wang Lu, Lu Li and the other 5 Spirit Sword sect disciples, sat at another table. In addition, the rest of the 10,000 Arts sect's handyman and other people were in other places, each accompanied by the young disciples of the Lingjian school. The etiquette of the Lingjian school was very thoughtful. After everyone took their seats, Feng Yin and Yuan Chaoyan, on behalf of the 2 sects, gave their respective speeches. Naturally, they were just some superficial official words. The elders of the 2 sects timely interjected and joked with each other. Their laughter was not high nor low, but their laughter was warm, which set off a harmonious and loving atmosphere. It was a scene of the 2 sects having an everlasting friendship. In fact, from the beginning, Yuan Chaoyan and the other 2 elders who sat at the main table never thought to make trouble at the dinner table. After all, their identity was different, and the identity of the Lingjian school's cultivators was also different. If there was any contradiction, it would easily evolve into a dispute between 2 of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, which was too high a standard and unnecessary. The protagonist of the dinner was undoubtedly at another table, which was the table where Zhan Zai and the others were sitting. Living up to expectations, almost as soon as the 2 sects' disciples took their seats, the atmosphere at this table began to turn cold. On one side was the 10,000 Arts sect, headed by Zhan Zai, who had the intention to come knocking on their door. On the other side was the Lingjian school, headed by Wang Lu, who had been set up for 2 months just to deceive them. Unlike the main table where the elders sat, here, no matter how sharp and fierce the contradiction was, they could simply say that the disciples were young and impetuous and didn't understand the severity of the situation. When the time came and they suffered a loss, the side that lost face could only spit on their own. Therefore, there was no need to worry. In fact, the disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect had long been eager to get into action. After a day's rest, Zhan Zai and the others had long recovered from the fright of the pink skeleton and regained their high IQ intellectual arrogance. In the afternoon, when they visited the Lingjian school's scripture pavilion and method developing hall, the pride that was engraved in their bones had already welled up. Compared to the inconceivably rich collection of methods in their sect, as well as the unparalleled method research institution in 9 regions, the Lingjian school's scripture pavilion and method developing hall were really rough and pitiful. From the perspective of academic ability, the Lingjian school admittedly had quality education, which was much better than the Royal Soldier sect's barbarian guerrillas. However, in front of the 10,000 Arts sect, it was still not enough. The embarrassment in the morning was just a momentary lapse. As long as the 10,000 Arts sect was fully reflected, a mere Lingjian school would inevitably kneel down and lick their boots. As for how to show their strength at the dinner table, it was actually very simple. The general habit of the 9 regions was nothing more than drinking and chatting at the dinner table. When the time came, as long as they showed a little bit of their knowledge, this group of country bumpkins would be dumbfounded and feel ashamed of their inferiority. That was probably how it should be. Moreover, for cultivators on the dinner table, in addition to drinking and chatting like mortals, there was also no lack of method developing. This was just like the drinking game of those literati, which was a table culture that belonged solely to cultivators. This Lingjian school was named after the sword, so most of them were good at swordsmanship, fighting and other bloody barbaric arts. However, in terms of spell casting, it was absolutely impossible for them to be compared with the 10,000 Arts sect. Not to mention that the worst disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect was still low-level foundation establishment. However, among the accompanying disciples of Spirit Sword sect, only one of them had reached the foundation establishment. Merely based on the difference in magical power, it was enough to make the method developing into a one-sided massacre. With such confidence, they took their seats and then waited for the opportunity to launch an attack. However, the momentum of the Lingjian school was not inferior. In addition to the successor disciple Lu Li and Wang Lu, there were also Yu Yun, Huaying and Yu Xinyao, all of whom were elites of the sect. Even though their cultivation base was not as good, their confidence was not the slightest bit weaker. The disciples of the 2 sects sat across from each other at the dinner table, looking very intimate. However, the atmosphere quickly became cold and stiff until Wang Lu broke the silence with a smile. Junior brother Yu Yun, junior sister Huaying, I haven't introduced you to each other. This is the eldest brother of the younger generation of the 10,000 Arts sect, Zhan Zai. Next to him is second sister Yi Feifei, third brother Zhao Jiangyuan, fourth brother Lu Chenkai and Hai Yunfan. Yu Yun and Huaying smiled and nodded, but they didn't say anything. Before they came, they had heard from their master that the protagonist of the banquet was Wang Lu, so they only needed to listen to his instructions. Then, senior brothers and sisters of the 10,000 Arts sect, allow me to introduce the people on our side. You've already met me and senior sister Lu Li. The one sitting there is our Misty Peaks junior brother Yu Yun. Next to him is junior sister Huaying, and next to him is Yu Xinyao. As soon as his voice fell, they heard the 10,000 Arts sect's third brother Zhao Jiangyuan sneer and say, "So many female cultivators? Is your Lingjian school at its wit's end? Do you only know how to sell women?" As soon as this remark came out, Huaying and Yu Xinyao's complexion immediately changed. Their appearance here had nothing to do with their female identity, but rather because they were the strongest and had the highest cultivation base among their peers. That's all. Zhao Jiangyuan's words actually compared them to vulgar women who amuse people with their looks. Wang Lu also sneered, "Sure enough, here it comes. Don't you have a big mouth?" "I'm not afraid of a big mouth. I'm waiting for you with my Grandmaster-level verbal cannon. Before the main course is served, it's not bad to use your big mouth as an appetizer." However, to Wang Lu's surprise, before he could open his mouth, the nearby senior sister Lu Li suddenly slapped the table and, with a look of sudden realization, shouted, "Ah, you're the one who molested that little girl." Wang Lu couldn't help but spurt out. This Lu Li was really outspoken. Moreover, her voice was very loud, so everyone in the cafeteria heard it. One after another, they cast their different gazes, causing Zhao Jiangyuan's face to turn red and purple. "When did I molest a little girl?" Upon hearing this, Wang Lu sneered, "Stupid. Who would ask such a question? Isn't that just asking for someone else's knife?" "Sure enough," Lu Li innocently replied, "it was this morning. I saw you holding a little girl and kissing her with my own eyes. Master said that was molestation." "Nonsense, I just... Zhao Jiangyuan was so anxious that his primordial spirit was about to split. The more he said, the more he couldn't continue. Fortunately, his senior sister Yi Feifei promptly helped him out. This matter depends on the benevolent. Junior brother's love for girls is pure and untainted. Only in the eyes of those who have filthy hearts can you see it as filthy." Lu Li frowned, she didn't understand at all. Thereupon, Wang Lu smiled and was ready to appear. But at this time, another person opened his mouth to speak. Isn't it better for everyone to eat first?" Wang Lu glanced at that person, smiled and shook his head. Little Hai said it well. Let's eat first. He hadn't seen Little Hai for many years. Since he opened his mouth, he would give him some face. In any case, this verbal exchange was just the appetizer. The main course was still waiting for him. Chapter 144. With Little Hai coming forward to smooth things over, the two sides no longer quarreled and began to taste the food on the table. This table of dishes was cooked by the chef of Carefree Peak. It looked, smelled, and tasted good, which moved the disciples of Misty Peak who had suffered a lot in the cafeteria. Especially the innocent senior sister Lu Li, who was the happiest. While eating, she praised, "This meat is great, great. What I used to eat here are just dregs." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu looked back at a certain Western continent girl who was standing at the entrance of the kitchen. Upon hearing this, he sent an encouraging look to her. However, Aya didn't appreciate it. She turned around and went back to the kitchen. After eating for a while, Wang Lu put down his chopsticks, knowing that the time was almost up. The other side couldn't keep eating like this, and they hadn't even started their business yet. Sure enough, the fourth disciple of 10,000 Arts sect, Lu Chenkai, frowned and said, "Is this what your Lingjian school usually eats?" Wang Lu really wanted to say, "We F***king want to eat it too, but Aya, that wastewood, has to be able to cook it." However, what came out of his mouth was, "What's wrong with it?" Lu Chenkai coldly humphed. "Wrong? There's nothing wrong with it. This table of food looks, smells, and tastes good. Moreover, the ingredients are of high quality, there's no lack of high-rank spirit things and even immortal things, but the chef doesn't understand nutrition at all. Not to mention that the cooking method of some dishes is wrong, which completely destroys the nutritional value. The matching of this table of food itself is extremely unreasonable. It's more than enough for ordinary people to satisfy their appetite, but for cultivators, it's simply a table of garbage." Wang Lu lightly responded, I didn't stop you from bringing your own food. If you feel that there's a lack of nutrition, then just add it yourself. Everything is matched by the chef, what's the use of you? Lu Qingkai was suddenly at a loss for words. After a while, he said, this shows that your chef is not professional. Nonsense, this is not the Blue River Region Chef Academy. Why do you need a professional chef? Our Lingjian school is not a rice bucket shop like yours. Lu Qingkai angrily said, are you saying our 10,000 arts sect is a rice bucket shop? Don't want to hear it? Then let's change the topic. How about we discuss the issue of molesting a little girl? You? With that, the eldest brother of the 10,000 arts sect finally couldn't sit still anymore. He put down his bowl and chopsticks and said with a sinking voice, you're wrong about this. According to the latest research of the Wanxian League, a cultivator's diet has a very important impact on their cultivation. Apart from absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, a cultivator's diet was another important source of magic power, which could not be ignored. A cultivator who knows how to eat is a qualified cultivator, and a sect that knows how to eat is a qualified sect. In this aspect, your Lingjian school is far behind. It's complete bullshit. Regarding this, Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders disapprovingly. Do you think a bunch of trash like you are worthy of talking about food in front of my Lingjian school? What a joke. You barbarians are the ones who don't have the right to talk about eating. Before he could finish speaking, Wang Lu had already clapped his hands. Alright, since you're not convinced, let's have a match. Zhang Zai was stunned. Compete? Compete what? How do we compete? Of course we compete to see who can eat. As for the competition method, don't tell me your 10,000 arts sect hasn't done it before? Zhang Zai frowned. Who would compete in this kind of thing? Wang Lu smiled. It's you who said that diet is important, and it's also you who said that the sect that knows how to eat is a qualified sect, yet you guys don't even have the relevant competition mechanism? Who would make such a pain-in-the-ass competition mechanism? However, before Zhang Zai could come up with an explanation, Wang Lu added, it doesn't matter if you don't. Let's use our Lingjian school's rules to compete. No matter how much of a nerd Zhang Zai was, he knew that this was inappropriate. Use your rules to compete? What? Don't you guys boast that you know how to eat and boast that your academic ability is amazing? Then use our rules to defeat us. Since you can come here from the faraway eastern border region, why would you be afraid of an away game? Wang Lu's provocation immediately worked. Before Zhang Zai could speak, the third brother, Zhao Jiangyuan, angrily said, who's afraid of who? Tell us how to compete, we'll take it. Wang Lu said, good, it's a deal. Elders, please be our witness. Then he turned his gaze to the other side. At the main table, the elders of the two sects had already put down their chopsticks and exchanged pleasantries. The elders of the Lingjian school had already expected this, so at this time, they were not in a hurry. However, Yuan Chaoyan tightly furrowed his brows. Inwardly he had a bad feeling. Since the show in the morning, he knew that the Lingjian school had long been prepared and had dug a big pit for him to jump into. At this time, this confident posture didn't seem to be a pretense. However, what Zhang Zai said just now was not nonsense. On the issue of eating, the 10,000 arts sect had already done in-depth research. Their disciples had also undergone special training. In this regard, they were in the forefront of the Wanxian League. Thus, it was not that easy for the Lingjian school to make a fuss about eating. In fact, it was not easy for the Lingjian school to make a fuss in any aspect. The academic atmosphere of the 10,000 arts sect was very strong, so much so that most of the fields had their own unique research. After thinking about it, Yuan Chaoyan opened his mouth and asked, may I ask what is the rule of your school? Wang Lu smiled and said, the detailed rules are here. If you think it's unfair, then let's drop this matter. With that, Wang Lu handed over a stack of sincerity paper to Yuan Chaoyan. The elder took it with a face full of suspicion, thinking, what kind of rules could be written in such a thick stack? However, after a quick glance, he raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but loudly praise, what a great idea. With his deity stage cultivation base, the tens of thousands of words that Wang Lu had painstakingly written could be understood by him in just a glance. Then, as a scholar, he immediately found the beauty of it and couldn't help but applaud. It was just that, as soon as his voice fell, Yuan Chaoyan realized that he had lost his self-control. He coughed, frowned, and re-examined the explanation of the rules. It was not because the rules were disadvantageous to the 10,000 arts sect. On the contrary, in Yuan Chaoyan's view, this extremely complex rule was quite advantageous to the 10,000 arts sect. Even if the Lingjian school had carried out a lot of training on this, the advantage of the 10,000 arts sect still remained unchanged. Let alone this rule was clearly just written not long ago, the ink hasn't even dried yet. Presumably, the people of the Lingjian school didn't have much preparation for this. Then, where did they get their confidence from? With a questioning look, Yuan Chaoyan once again stared at Wang Lu. However, he saw that the latter's face was calm. Under the scrutiny of a deity stage powerhouse, he was unexpectedly indifferent. Of course, this was also because Yuan Chaoyan didn't use his primordial spirit and magical power at all. After all, this was the home of the Lingjian school. With his identity as an elder, it would be too despicable for him to make a move against a successor disciple. However, it could be seen that Wang Lu was genuinely calm and didn't have any ulterior motives. Thus, Yuan Chaoyan had nothing to say. He handed over the sincerity paper to Zhan Zai and the others. The speed of the several disciples was not slow, so it didn't take long for them to finish reading it. The eldest brother Zhan Zai nodded his head. I have no objection to this. Zhao Jiangyuan was even more confident. Rest assured, disciple will not lose face for the sect. Lu Qingkai was the fuse of this competition. At this time, his face was also filled with excitement. The rules of this competition are really interesting. Master, please allow me to participate in the competition with my senior brothers. Yi Feifei and Hai Yunfan didn't express their stance, especially Hai Yunfan, who couldn't help but wryly smile inwardly. Senior brothers, you guys are still too young. If it were me, once I saw Wang Lu's appearance, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the time to escape. How could you guys rush to jump into the pit like this? However, he had also seen the rules just now. It was indeed Wang Lu's handwriting. Not to mention the previous verbal confrontation at the dinner table, just this set of rules alone would be difficult for any qualified disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect to refuse. Wang Lu had really scratched the itch of his senior brothers. Seeing his disciple's stance, Yuan Chaoyan hesitated for a moment. Then let's compete. The Lingjian school had been waiting for the competition for a long time. When Yuan Chaoyan nodded his head, Wang Lu smiled and clapped his hands. Set the stage. The several elders at the main table had already gotten up and moved the table to the side. The center of the cafeteria was naturally reserved for the competition. As soon as the main table was moved, an oval table that was several times larger took its place. There was no food on the table, but instead there were 10 card boxes. The disciples of the two sects respectively took their seats in front of the card boxes. Although the disciples of the Lingjian school were not familiar with each other, they had previously rehearsed the rules, so they had a rough idea of the rules. The disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect gave full play to their academic talent advantage. After going through the rules in their mind, they confidently found a place to sit down. Then, after Yuan Chaoyan determined that the two sides were ready, he gave the order, begin. The 10 disciples quickly opened the card boxes and pulled out dozens of cards. While the other disciples were still browsing the cards and thinking about the strategy, the third disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect, Zhao Jiangyuan, without hesitation, directly pulled out the first card and shouted, "Braised beef noodles." The card that he held high was painted with a bowl of fragrant noodles. On the upper left corner of the card were written 50 points, and below it were written red 3, yellow 5, and green 1. A moment later, a bowl of braised beef noodles appeared in front of Zhao Jiangyuan. He picked up the chopsticks and gently touched the bottom of the bowl. At the same time, he released his magical power and stuck the chopsticks to the entire bowl of noodles. He then picked up a big piece of dough, opened his mouth, directly dislocated his jaw, and swallowed the dough. The whole bowl of braised beef noodles was swallowed by Zhao Jiangyuan in one bite. Then the number 50 appeared on top of his head, along with the red 3, yellow 5, green 1, and other gray, black, brown, and other numbers. However, all of them were 0. This was the basic rule of the game. The contestants used the cards to order the dishes. Every time they ate a dish, there would be corresponding points and elements in their account. The so-called elements were what people often said was the nutritional value. The dozens of cards each represented different dishes, and each had different points and nutritional elements. The way for the contestants to win was through these different dishes, and finally, they would get the most and most reasonable nutritional elements. So what was the role of the points? It was very simple. The use of points was to buy cards. The first dozens of cards in a player's hand were some of the most basic dishes, such as braised beef noodles, pickled cabbage noodles, mushroom stewed chicken noodles. Only by accumulating a certain amount of points through these different cards could they buy new cards. However, when buying cards, there were many factors that needed to be considered. For example, a bowl of congee with pork and century egg was 100 points, and 2 caddies of cooked beef was also 100 points. In terms of points, the former was naturally more cost-effective. However, the nutritional value of the latter was far higher than the former. So, whether to use the points or the nutritional elements directly depended on the person. Only by accumulating enough points could one exchange for a highly nutritious and cost-effective card. However, filling one's stomach in order to accumulate points would be neglecting the essentials. Apart from that, one also had to consider the taste. For example, a steamed fish in hot chili oil might have high points in nutritional value, but it was added with the high-grade spirit herb, invincible killer pepper. In that case, one really had to think about whether to eat it or not. Finally, one had to consider the special effects of the dishes. For example, some dishes were appetizers, some were especially greasy, and one bite would make one feel sick for a long time and some would fart easily. And in this process, the most basic requirement was not the ability to calculate and lay out, but the appetite. No matter how meticulous the calculation was and the nutrition was reasonable, if one didn't have enough appetite to eat the dishes represented by the cards, it would all be in vain. This was a competition for the king of the stomach. However, this was actually what the 10,000 Arts sect wanted. In this group of 5 people, Zhan Zai had the highest cultivation base, but the rest of the disciples also had their own unique skills. This Zhao Jiangyuan really had a great specialty in eating, that is, he could eat a lot. Therefore, after getting the cards, Zhao Jiangyuan didn't think too much and directly ordered the dishes. Before the other people had finished looking at the cards, he had already eaten his first dish, braised beef noodles, gaining the upper hand by showing off his strength. However, the next moment, Zhao Jiangyuan's complexion suddenly changed, revealing a painful expression. In this regard, Wang Lu just sneered. Idiot, the dish of this competition was made by Aya. Chapter 145. How could there be a real fair duel in this world? The rules formulated by Wang Lu seemed to be slightly advantageous to the 10,000 Arts sect. After all, the ability of academic talents in calculation and layout was higher than that of the cultivators of Spirit Sword sect, especially when the leader of Lingjian school was Lu Li. However, how could Wang Lu really be partial to the 10,000 Arts sect in his own home field? Now, it was Lingjian school's turn to collect the home field benefit. The head chef of this competition, Aya. If one wasn't a disciple of Spirit Sword sect and had not passed the test in the Misty Cafeteria, the average person was not qualified to taste Aya's cooking. Sure enough, when Zhao Jiangyuan of 10,000 Arts sect ate a bowl of braised beef noodles, his complexion immediately changed. He opened his mouth and wanted to retch. After shaking for a while, he reluctantly held it back, but the spirit of gaining the upper hand with a show of strength has been completely lost. What the hell is this? Zhao Jiangyuan asked in a hoarse voice, flustered and exasperated. Wang Lu put down the card and replied with a chuckle. Braised beef noodles? Braised beef noodles can't possibly taste like this, okay? You're clearly cheating. Wang Lu continued to laugh. It can't be that taste, we're cheating? I've never heard that the Wanxian League has an explicit rule that the braised beef noodles must taste like this. Not to mention that you've just eaten that bowl of noodles, so you should be clear about the nutrition. As a cultivator, is the desire for good food more important or the nutrition more important? I remember that your 10,000 Arts sect has expressed this view. Zhao Jiangyuan was stunned. Indeed, although the taste of the beef noodles was strange, there was no problem with the nutrition. Or rather, the really inconceivable problem was, how could the chef make such a wonderful taste under the premise of reasonable nutrition? Wang Lu also said, if you're not convinced, then I'll also have a bowl. With that, he took out the braised beef noodles card and summoned a bowl of the same noodles. He picked one with chopsticks and gave it to Zhao Jiangyuan. Then, like Zhao Jiangyuan, he picked the noodles into a ball and swallowed it, but his complexion remained unchanged. After tasting that noodles, Zhao Jiangyuan's complexion turned pale. Seeing that Wang Lu was calm and composed, he knew that this was probably one of the reasons why Lingjian school was confident. Sure enough, they were good at using tricks and intrigues. He knew things wouldn't be so easy. But so what? If they thought that this little trick could stop the scholars of the 10,000 Arts sect, then they were too naive. Zhao Jiangyuan suppressed the strange taste in his mouth and the discomfort in his abdomen. He took something out of his mustard seed bag and swallowed it. Instantly he felt refreshed. 10,000 Arts sect special panacea, invigorating stomach and digestion pill, could effectively alleviate the indigestion and loss of appetite caused by various reasons. Even if it was guanine clay, he could still eat it with relish. Zhao Jiangyuan turned around and glared at Wang Lu. He sneered and raised his card, Laoten pickled vegetable noodles. As a basic card, Laotan pickled cabbage noodles had a score of 50. The nutrition points were red 2, green 4, and yellow 3. However, Zhao Jiangyuan's nutrition points were much higher than the card's value. It was red 3, green 6, and yellow 5. The onlookers of Spirit Sword sect were taken aback, and then they began to talk about it. However, the cultivators of 10,000 Arts sect revealed a smug look, seemingly not surprised by this scene. What was a cultivator who could eat? Eating the same thing but being able to digest more nutrients and produce less waste? This was a cultivator who could eat. Zhao Jiangyuan not only had a large appetite, but his digestive ability was also extremely strong. It could be said that he could eat extremely well. On this point, even Zhan Zai couldn't compare to him. The only thing that could stop him in the Lingjian school was nothing more than the appalling chef's cooking. However, with the invigorating stomach and digestion pill, what could the strange taste noodles do? After eating the Laotan pickled vegetable noodles, Zhao Jiangyuan continued to eat 4 bowls of noodles in a row, saving up to 300 points and a certain number of element points. He immediately exchanged them for 2 new cards, Yuxiang shredded pork and mapo tofu, which gradually enriched the dishes. At the same time, Zhan Zai, Lu Chengkai, and the others weren't slow either. They each finished 3 bowls of noodles, and Zhan Zai surprisingly exchanged for the Westlake beef soup, a non-mainstream card. Although the points and nutrition points were not high, he clearly had his own plans. At the same time, Yi Feifei, Lu Chengkai, and Hai Yunfan also had amazing performances. Unsurprisingly, the disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect all had a superhuman digestive ability. Thus, the nutrition points that they obtained from each dish were higher than the standard value. On the other hand, the Lingjian school's disciples conformed to the norm. Their eating speed was average. Even Yu Yun, who worked hard the most, didn't have any advantage compared to the female cultivator of the 10,000 Arts sect, Yi Feifei. At the same time, because there was no special digestion method, the accumulation of nutrition points was even slower. This eating competition had a time limit, and according to the current pace, before the time limit was up, the nutrition points of the 10,000 Arts sect would probably be several times more than that of the Lingjian school. As the competition went on for a while, the gap between the two sides gradually widened. The elders of the 10,000 Arts sect remained calm. They inwardly knew that if the other side didn't have an unexpected card, they could declare the winner at this time. However, just as they were thinking about how to prepare their card under the existing rules, they suddenly heard a voice that resounded through the audience not far away. Very good. Now we can see that the contestants of the 10,000 Arts sect have occupied the absolute advantage on the field. Their contestant with the fastest progress, Zhao Jiangyuan, has already obtained 3 level 3 cards. At the same time, his nutrition points are much more than the other contestants. On the other hand, the Lingjian school doesn't have any good result. They don't even have a few level 2 cards. I wonder, as the home team, what do you think now? If you want to reverse the situation, what kind of trick should you use? Everyone present turned their eyes to the direction of the voice and saw that a woman in white had set up a table at the side of the cafeteria and began to explain. Several of the Lingjian school elders couldn't help but laugh, but they didn't care about her. Because at this time the protagonist was not an outsider. Want to reverse the situation? Then I'll reverse it for you. On the other side of the table, Wang Lu, who had been silent for a long time, smiled and put down the bowl of noodles in his hand. From the start of the competition until now, he had eaten 26 bowls of noodles. According to the standard of ordinary people, his appetite was simply against the heavens' will. However, among the 10 people at the table, he was the last. What was even more surprising was that he had never used his 1,300 points. Did he want to exchange for a high-level card? However, according to the rules, before exchanging for a high-level card, he must have a certain number of intermediate cards, as well as the corresponding nutrition points. He only had a level 1 card, so even if he had 10,000 points, he could only exchange for a level 2 card. However, people soon understood Wang Lu's plan. 1280 points, 11 lottery draw. Wang Lu raised his hand high. The next moment, the points above his head rapidly changed and shrunk to 20 points. At the same time, a rapidly spinning ball appeared in front of him, radiating golden light. Lottery draw? The other 9 contestants at the table were taken aback, especially the 5 people from 10,000 Arts sect, who looked at Wang Lu incredulously. The rules of the lottery draw were written in detail in the explanation of the rules. This was the only way for the contestants to ignore the card level and directly obtain a high-level card through points. 130 points for 1 draw, 1280 points for a discount of 11 draws. However, the winning rate of the lottery draw was very unreasonable. The winning rate of a valuable high-level card was only 1 in 1,000. In terms of cost, it was more than 100,000 points to obtain a high-level card, which was far higher than the actual value of the card. Therefore, in the eyes of academic talents, this kind of lottery draw was simply a desperate last-ditch effort. Wasting valuable points on a lottery draw was really unreasonable. As for the several elders of 10,000 Arts sect, they stared at the lottery ball with a serious face, ensuring that the Spirit Sword sect would not be able to cheat. Then, under the focus of everyone's eyes, the ball began to spit out cards. Level 1 card, Sweet Tofu Pudding. Level 1 card, Meat Dumpling. Level 1 card, Meat Glutinous Ball. Zhao Jiangyuan, who was eating the streaky pork, almost spurted out his laughter. Sure enough, they were all the standard abnormal cards. Although the level was divided into level 1, these heaven-defying food were simply level 0. Not to mention that they couldn't get many points, their nutrition points were mainly black points, which were poison points. If one ate too much of this kind of thing, not to mention that it would be poisoned, it would also greatly affect the accumulation of other nutrition points. This was a garbage card that deserved to be thrown away. However, when it came to the 4th card, Zhao Jiangyuan couldn't laugh anymore. Level 3 card, Crab Meat Tofu. This was the card that he had just exchanged. The points and nutrition points were very balanced, and it was a high-quality card among the level 3 cards. For this reason he really spent a lot of effort on the level 2 card, but as a result Wang Lu directly drew it out. And this was not the end. When the 5th card came out, Zhao Jiangyuan pounded the table and stood up. Impossible. Level 6 card, Lady Boss's Sliced White Meat. Then came the 6th card, Level 5 card, Lady Boss's Yangchun Noodles. 7th card, Level 5 card, Lady Boss's Scallion Pancake. 8th card, Level 4 card, Fish and Chips. The 9th card, Look Up at the Starry Sky. The 10th card, 5 Kernel Mooncake. And the 11th card, Level 6 card, Golden Seasoning Bottle. Under the shocked eyes of the crowd, Wang Lu calmly put away the cards and directly destroyed the cards, recovering dozens of points. Then he superimposed the Golden Seasoning Bottle and the Level 6 card, Lady Boss's Sliced White Meat, upgrading it to a strengthened Level 6 card, Lady Boss's Sliced White Meat. A small bowl of sliced white meat, which contained an extremely rich immortal spirit aura, could provide 600 points and 10 nutrition points. Compared to Level 1 braised beef noodles, it was more than 10 times better. The contestants from the 10,000 Arts sect were all dumbfounded. Lu Qiankai directly shoved the noodles into his nostrils, choking and coughing again and again. One of the commentators was highly excited. Level 6 card. Level 6 card. The legendary Level 6 card. Unexpectedly, when the competition has just entered the middle stage, a contestant has already obtained a Level 6 card, completely reversing the previous disadvantageous situation. He is indeed worthy to be the most promising successor disciple in Lingjian School, Wang Lu. The contestants of the 10,000 Arts sect rely on academics and skills to make a living, while the disciples of my Lingjian School rely on their faces to make a living. I think just based on this, the sect should increase the budget for his non-face peak. Specifically, it should be. Before he could finish, that commentator was directly expelled by the elders of Spirit Sword sect. However, this temporary interlude could not affect the death-like silence on the field. The disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect couldn't eat anymore. They just stared at the dreamlike strengthened Level 6 card in Wang Lu's hand. Is this the competitive spirit of your Lingjian school? As the eldest brother, Zhan Zai was the first to speak. However, before he could finish, his master Yuan Chaoyan sighed. Zai, don't say that, this is not cheating. Zhan Zai's eyes widened. Not cheating? Some people are born with strong luck, you can't envy them. Based on luck? Yuan Chaoyan nodded but didn't explain too much. For Zhan Zai, it was still too early to come into contact with the concept of luck. However, that Wang Lu's luck was really unexpected. Since the elders had spoken, the competition continued. However, the atmosphere was obviously not right. The disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect no longer had the leisurely mentality that they had before. Because someone with strong luck, relying on several Level 5 and Level 6 cards, in a short period of time, the nutrition points rapidly caught up. If this momentum continued, it wouldn't be long before he overtook them. Damn it, I don't believe this. Finally, Lu Qiankai couldn't help but raise his hand. 1280 points, 11 in a row. Junior brother, don't be impulsive. Unfortunately, it was too late. Lu Qinsai's points were immediately deducted, and then the 11 cards were spat out. Lu Qinkai glanced at them and his face turned pale. The cards in front of him, without exception, were all abnormal cards. The next moment, to make things worse, Lu Qinkai felt that his stomach turned upside down, and he couldn't help but want to vomit. Fortunately, he promptly used his magical power to suppress the reaction of his body and reluctantly swallowed it back. However, his appetite was greatly reduced and he didn't want to eat any more. Zhanzai cast him a puzzled look. Junior brother? Lu Qinkai reluctantly turned his head. Senior brother, the effect of the digestive pill seems to have been offset. I feel nauseous. Zhanzai was taken aback, thinking, who exactly is this head chef that even the digestive pill can't stop her? Then he turned his head and looked at those disciples of Spirit Sword sect who, despite their unhappy faces, still maintained a constant eating speed. His eyes were filled with admiration. This group of barbarians are actually very strong. Chapter 146. After Wang Lu's 11 consecutive lottery draws shocked the whole arena, the situation of the competition has been completely reversed. The 10,000 Arts sect was completely suppressed. Although the other people of Lingjian school still had an advantage in terms of nutrition points and card level, the advantage was gradually shrinking. It was not that the people of Lingjian school became faster, but the people of 10,000 Arts sect became slower. First of all, it was because of Wang Lu's 11 consecutive lottery draw, which, after all, brought a very bad hint to these contestants. Whenever they accumulated a certain amount of points and then looked at the golden card in Wang Lu's card box, they couldn't help but want to try their luck. Master said that Wang Lu was born with a strong luck, but among the people present who didn't have a bit of good luck. Each of the 5 people who came here today was a cultivator with a God-given opportunity. And once they tried their luck, the result would inevitably be strange card, and more strange card. A lot of points were squandered, and Lu Qinkai wasn't the last one. Even Zhao Jiangyuan, who had the fastest progress, couldn't help but try his luck. As a result, he wasted more than 10 dishes that he had eaten. Seeing this, Wang Lu just faintly smiled and ignored him. In fact, the reason why he shocked the audience with 11 consecutive lottery draws was not so that he could be far ahead in the final victory, but to slow down the opponent's pace, to make them hesitate, to let them jump into the lottery pit with a fluke. In other words, he was an out-and-out shill. The so-called born with a strong luck was indeed not false. However, no matter how strong the luck was, it was impossible to casually create 11 consecutive lottery draws in a 1,000th chance. There was a bit of skill in this. Of course, it was not cheating, but a special means to instantly enhance one's luck. This was his own unique skill, immature, and the effect was not good. It was difficult to be effective in actual combat, but in a mere big appetite competition, it was more than enough to draw a lottery. Unfortunately, this skill could only be used once, and it was impossible for him to create 11 consecutive lottery draws again, nor was it necessary. Secondly, the thing that slowed down the pace of the 10,000 Arts sect was Aya's superb cooking skill. Even the digestive pill couldn't suppress the strong and unique taste, which was enough to dispel the appetite of most people. Moreover, the stomach-strengthening digestion pill was not something that could be taken continuously. Fortunately, the 5 people of the 10,000 Arts sect had a solid foundation. Relying on the powerful body control of a foundation establishment cultivator, they were finally able to maintain their eating action without being interrupted. However, needless to say, the torture. On the other side, seeing that the speed of the 10,000 Arts sect people had slowed down, the morale of the Lingjian school contestants was boosted, and they began to gradually accelerate, striving to catch up. However, just as the situation gradually became more unfavorable, the C-stabilizing pillar of the 10,000 Arts sect finally opened his mouth. Senior brother, senior sister, since this is a competition, why don't we treat it as one? Winning is more important than showing off my skills or willpower. The 10,000 Arts sect's junior brother lightly said. His eyes swept over his 4 fellow disciples, and seeing that they had been listening to him seriously, he smiled. Senior brothers and senior sisters, you all know that I've never had any great ability, therefore, just now, I've already cut off my sense of taste. Zhanzai and the others were stunned for a moment. Then, a look of realization appeared on their faces. That's right, there was such a move. For a foundation establishment cultivator, their body control was better than that of a Xiantian stage martial artist, so blocking one of the 5 senses was not difficult at all. And once the sense of taste failed, although it would still bring some trouble, at least this strange food would no longer be a hindrance. This was a competition, not a place to show off willpower or to compete with the opponent. Victory was the first priority. Although for the people of the 10,000 Arts sect, their original idea was to end the competition with an overwhelming and comprehensive victory, but since they couldn't do it, an ordinary victory was the same. Zhan Zai, Zhao Jiangyuan, and the others nodded approvingly at Hai Yunfan, and then cut off their sense of taste, greatly increasing their eating speed. Wang Lu glanced at Hai Yunfan, smiled and didn't speak. Among the 5 people of the 10,000 Arts sect, the one with the highest cultivation base was Zhan Zai. However, the one who was really worth paying attention to was actually Hai Yunfan. However, it was only worth paying attention to. The real trump card that determined the outcome was not these. On the other side, with the reminder from Hai Yunfan, the progress of the 10,000 Arts sect accelerated again, and the hope of victory returned to them. The one with the biggest appetite was Zhao Jiangyuan, who was like a tiger devouring a whale. The empty plates beside him piled up like a small mountain, which was daunting. The physique of a foundation establishment cultivator was extraordinary, but if there was no special method, it was impossible to have such an appetite. After all, the residue from the digestion was simply impossible to deal with, so they couldn't eat at the same time, right? Not to mention that most of the dishes on the table were made of spirit materials, which were far superior to the mortal world's food, thus, it was particularly troublesome to digest. At this time, Zhao Jiangyuan displayed his specialty to the extreme, and soon he left the other contestants, especially the people from Lingjian school, far behind. Even the distance between him and Wang Lu was constantly shortened. The high-level card in Wang Lu's hand was indeed powerful, but the 10,000 Arts sect contestants were also constantly improving their card level. In the early stage, level 5 and level 6 cards were simply unbearable, but in the middle stage they were not so unattainable. Zhao Jiangyuan had accumulated several level 4 cards, which could be exchanged for a level 5 card at any time. As long as he could surpass Wang Lu, there would be no suspense in this game, unless he could once again go against the heaven and draw out a large number of level 6 cards, only then could he consolidate his advantage. However, even if he really did that, with Zhao Jiangyuan's progress, he could update his level 6 card in 2/3 of the time, and then use the last 1/3 of the time to regain his advantage. In this regard, Wang Lu was still unhurried, watching his hard-won lead rapidly shrinking, but he was indifferent. In fact, he couldn't speed up at all. In this glutton competition, purely on individual strength, he was actually the weakest, and he didn't have any advantage over Yu Xinyao. Indeed, purely in terms of physical strength with his non-phase sword bone, he didn't think that he was inferior to Zhan Zai and Lu Li. However, physical strength and appetite were not directly linked. In fact, as long as one used a simple reasoning, it was not difficult to get the answer. In non-phase peak, that kind of destitute place, how could there be a method with a big appetite? Wang Wu couldn't wait for her and her disciple to absorb the essence of the sun and the moon, living in the open without eating. Therefore, from the beginning, Wang Lu didn't intend to win the game by himself. Everything he did was just to attract the attention of the other side so that the real card could be hidden. Right now, the attention of the people from 10,000 Arts sect, including Hai Yunfan, was focused on him, but they ignored the people from Lingjian school, whose progress was also growing faster and faster. Finally, when 2/3 of the time had passed, Zhao Jiangyuan exchanged his level 6 card and showed a victorious smile to Wang Lu. However, Wang Lu actually pointed his finger to the side. Zhao Jiangyuan puzzledly turned his head, and then his eyes widened. He didn't know when, but Lu Li's nutrition points had actually risen to the point where they were almost on par with him. Moreover, the rate of increase was still accelerating. Previously, their attention was focused on Wang Lu, so they thought that as long as they defeated Wang Lu, they would win. However, unexpectedly, the real trump card of Lingjian school turned out to be another person. For a time, the 5 people from 10,000 Arts sect were all stunned. They saw that Lu Li didn't even lift her head to clean the food in front of her. Her movements were methodical, showing her ladle-like demeanor. However, her speed was not slow at all because she actually didn't chew at all. Just like Zhao Jiangyuan and the others, she directly swallowed the food. It was just that she wasn't as vigorous and unrestrained as Zhao Jiangyuan and the others. However, she also had her own method. A pair of silver chopsticks danced up and down in her hands, and when she gently touched the big piece of food, dozens of neat cubes appeared. Then she opened her small mouth like a whale sucking water, and swallowed the cubes into her stomach. She was not much slower than Zhao Jiangyuan and the others. Moreover, unlike the people from 10,000 Arts sect, she didn't stop eating at all. She didn't need to wait for the food to be digested. Her whole person was like a bottomless pit. At this time, the competition had already entered the middle and late stage. Most of the dishes were level 3 or above, which were not easy to digest. Ordinary people would have a nosebleed just by eating one bite. Even if the people present were the elite disciples of the 5 uniques, eating dozens of dishes in a row was still a great burden. The 10,000 Arts sect had a special method to help with digestion, so compared to the disciples of Lingjian school, the situation was much better. At least, elite inner court disciples like Yu Yun couldn't eat 2 dishes in a row without taking a rest. However, this Lu Li's eating speed wasn't fast, but she didn't stop the whole time. As her card level gradually increased, her relative eating speed became faster and faster. Wang Lu inwardly laughed. This was the fierceness of the brilliant sword heart's clear physique. The super explosive power that could instantly kill a shoot-on stage cultivator was all thanks to this crystal clear special physique. When it came to the ability to transform energy, perhaps only that stupid Fenrir dog could be comparable to it. Not everyone had the ability to write a food diary after a year of experiential learning. Well then, your next task is to kill our lovely senior sister Lu Li. I'm full, so I won't accompany you to play anymore. With that, Wang Lu directly stood up and gave up the game. The people of 10,000 Arts sect were once again stunned. Especially Zhao Jiangyuan, who was simply indignant. Your uncle, you can't play like this, can't you have a little bit of competitive spirit? You're so arrogant and domineering in the early stage of the game, but now we, this group of shameless men, have finally caught up with you. Yet you directly threw away your responsibility and said you don't want to play anymore? Naturally, Wang Lu also felt regretful. Professional adventurers also had their professional ethics, but if they couldn't eat, they couldn't eat. Moreover, did you think it's easy to eat so much? You, this group of foundation establishment stage big eaters, can digest as much as you eat, while I, this chi cultivating stage's pretty girl from a humble family, have been playing with you for so long that I'm about to be stuffed to death. However, these reasons didn't need to be explained. As long as he could make the other side indignant and have no appetite to eat, then that would be even better. He knew Lu Li's strength very well. Compared to the foodies of the 10,000 Arts sect, she actually didn't have much of an advantage. He had calculated so much and played so many dirty tricks, but all he could do was to increase his winning rate to more than 50%. Next, whether senior sister Lu Li could kill all 4 opponents, or whether the people of 10,000 Arts sect would have some hidden card, Wang Lu was too lazy to care about it. After eating so much, he had to let himself relax. After a while, Wang Lu returned to the arena refreshed and found that his timing was really accurate. In a cup of tea's time, the game would be over. However, at this time, the situation on the arena, most of the people had already given up on the game and were sitting in their seats gasping for breath. Even Zhan Zai helplessly shook his head. His nutrition point matching method was amazing, and his calculation was exquisite. With a limited amount of points, he could achieve double the effect. However, in the face of the opponent who ate several times more than him, Zhan Zai could only sigh helplessly. As for those who had a poor appetite and forced themselves to eat, they had a tumbling pain in their stomachs, but they couldn't leave the stage as freely as Wang Lu, which was extremely embarrassing. There were only 2 protagonists left in the arena, Lu Li and Zhao Jiangyuan. Senior sister Lu Li, like a bottomless pit, was still eating in an orderly manner. Those dishes that contained astonishing energy, she ate them in 2 or 3 bites. Her complexion didn't change at all, nor did she care about the change in points and nutrition points. In fact, in the entire game she was the only one who really enjoyed the joy of eating. On the other side, Zhao Jiangyuan's face turned red and purple, as if his body could explode at any time. His mouth, throat, and abdomen were stuffed with food, and his whole body seemed to have swelled up. It could be seen that during the time when Wang Lu was away from the arena, he was really desperate to eat. And the result of this desperate effort was that his nutrition points still occupied the advantage, although it was only a negligible bit. Now that the competition was about to end, as long as he swallowed the food in his mouth, according to Lu Li's eating speed, he would almost be able to win. However, swallowing the last bite was easier said than done. However, if he didn't swallow it, it was almost certain that Lu Li would win the final victory. The several elders of the 10,000 Arts sect revealed a worried look, because unlike Lu Li, who was born to be a foodie, Zhao Jiangyuan's appetite had a limit. Now he was simply going beyond that limit, desperately eating, which was, in fact, taking a great risk. However, if he gave up at this time, it would be a heavy blow to his belief, which made the elders somewhat hesitant. Perhaps if he gave it his all, he could really win? On the scene there was such a strange stalemate situation. Both sides held their breath for fear of affecting the two people who had entered the final stage of the dinner table. Well, Lu Li of course was not affected. They were afraid that something would happen to Zhao Jiangyuan. Seeing this scene, Wang Lu shook his head and sighed. Why bother? Then he strolled to the dining table, which was actually next to Lu Li, and then he reached out and gently untied the top button of the girl's lapel. Suddenly, half of her snow-white skin bloomed. Puff. The next moment, on the opposite side of the table, a nosebleed, along with the food piled up in Zhao Jiangyuan's mouth and abdomen. The outcome had been decided. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.